That's right. All right, guys, welcome to Fish North Georgia's Tuesday Nighters here at the shop. And, guys, we're glad you are joining us tonight. We're going to be talking summertime hot bass fishing with a concentration on the smaller bodies of water we got here in the state of Georgia. And if you're watching live, hey, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button too. Hit the comment section, throw us out your questions and everything. If you're watching at a later date, we appreciate you as well. And make sure you go check Fish North Georgia out, FNGO on some of it, at all our social media channels. So you guys, again, let us know you're here. I know it's going to take a little bit for you guys to catch up, but it should be a pretty interesting conversation tonight. Got a couple of buddies from the one from the electric only world, one from the kayak world, and we're just going to talk fishing. So to my left, I've got Eric Richards right there in all his good-looking glory right there, and struggling right here to the right in the look sections is my buddy Justin Speece. So he's the kayaker. Eric fishes electric only, and then back there, put the camera on your beautiful face, the one and only Blake Buchanan. So, Blake, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Are you good? You ready to go? So, Jeremiah Giles in the building. Can't wait. So, we're going to jump right in it tonight and get to talking. It is hot. That is the only way to describe it. What's up, Carrie Bell? It's hot in the state of Georgia right now. And everybody that's coming in the shop, I've heard this all week. It's about too hot to fish. It's just about too hot to fish. But we all know we're going to fish anyway. You got your tournaments going on, whether we're weighing them or whether we're measuring them. But people are going to continue to fish. And so in Georgia, we've got a lot of great electric-only small bodies of water from Latham up here about, I don't know, maybe 7-8 minutes from the shop all the way down to, I consider Macon above kind of our area. So we've got Varner, we've got Hard Labor, Black Shoals, bunch of those down there. Philip Hutchinson, it is too hot to fish during the day. That's right. What's up, Alex Purse? And potatoes.
I'm going to punch him in the head.
All right, let's go ahead. What does potatoes mean? Is that your nickname?
No. So we were out over the dead of winter. It was like 40-degree temperatures, and I'm out 4 layers deep in the kayak and caught a nice spot. Alex took a picture, and it turned into my nickname, the Fat Lazy Potato.
You do kind of look like Potato Head. I mean, I know we're friends. I'm sure I could say that, but yes, it is. But Carson Fowler, only if you're a little girl. Hey, listen, it is what it is, but it's hot. It's hot as hell if we're just being honest about it. I think tomorrow we got a chance, Atlanta's got a chance to break a record of 100 degrees for this time of year, which, is what it is. They're not saying it on the news about it being hot in the South. It's just those Yankees up there. I threw that little jab at you that there. But seriously, they're not used to it up there. We are. It's hot down here.
We get up north, there's still humidity. I mean, it's not to the extent down here that it is, but up north, still get humidity, still get high 90s. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's a little different down here, but.
Is it newsworthy, though? I mean, the nightly news every night is their lead story is 100 million Americans under a heat advisory. And I'm like, well, hell, it's summer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's summer. So, Eric, tell everybody you fish a couple of trails, right? Or are you just doing one this year?
Just one.
Just one. Tell everybody about the trail you fish and kind of some of the lakes you guys
fishing
visit.
The electric fishing series.
Yep.
There's a pretty close to 40 of us in it, 20 in the south, 20 in the north. We kind of split up the season. We started at Lake Lanier, everybody together, and then south guys fish south, and we fish north and south.
Right.
And then we'll meet back up next month at Hard Labor.
Yeah, Hard Labor. So give me a couple of the smaller lakes that you guys fish.
Black Shoals, Varner, Hickory Log, Hollis Latham.
Okay. The standards.
Yep.
The standards. And you, of course, being a kayak guy, do you fish tournaments at all on the smaller reservoirs at all, or are you pretty much how does that work? Do you guys ever go to any of these? I know you fish them, but the tournaments.
So GAKFL this year did a what they called this small pond hop, which was all electric only, Hard Labor. Black Shoals originally was on it. They took it off because that was going to be my go-to, because last year I ended up with big bass on a 23 3/4 inch largemouth.
And what did that weigh estimate?
7.5 to 8.
Okay, there you go.
So,
I have to get them to estimate weights.
But yeah, this year I fished Bear Creek during a tournament. A little difficult, but it's one of those things. I mean, when you go from big lakes and rivers to small water reservoirs, it's definitely adjustments. You just got to know how to make those adjustments.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Philip Hutchinson, 33% humidity today. That's Montana level. that's exactly what it reminded me of 2 years ago when we were filming in Montana. It was like 96 during the day, but it would get 44 degrees at night. But there was no humidity. And Hog Wild, Cooper Bowling, hey, that's a name I ain't recognized. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Hog Wild, first of all, tell me where you're at again. I know you join us a lot, but up there you get asphalt and concrete heat radiation because everything is paved and surrounded by steel buildings and all the places. Yeah, that's Atlanta. Atlanta gets hot as all get go too, but I couldn't remember Hog Wild if you were living up there, if you're down here. So Jeremy Conkright, you guys are great in the comment section already. We got a local club called Pond Hoppers. Nothing bigger than a 17-foot boat and 15 horsepower. All they fish is 800 acres or less. And it's growing as far as guys getting on these smaller lakes. Now, not everybody fishes tournaments. That's why you're in Pickens. I'm on the west end. We roof Turner Tire Shop. Okay, well, your comment made me think, oh, Lord, is he one of the guys that watched me from up north? So that's what I thought, buddy. I just want to make sure. Carr said 103 degrees coming through Atlanta today. So it's hot. It's definitely hot. And then now, of course, the fishing changes a little bit. We come out of post spawn, and it seems like all of a sudden it gets tough. Like there's just a determining factor that gets tough. So Eric, you've been fishing a lot lately. When did you kind of see the fish going into their summertime patterns? And we're talking bass tonight. You know, was there kind of a May, late May, early June?
I'd say early June.
Early June.
Probably.
Yeah. And what was the differences that you noticed from fishing post spawn to going into that?
Well, there's that kind of that lull there where you seemed like you couldn't catch one right after the post spawn, and then they started picking back up, and then now they've kind of grouped together, and you still have some that are staying shallow, and then you still got a lot that's getting down there deep. Yeah,
and deep is what my mindset. And Justin, you can kind of chime in on this. My mindset is shallow early, deep the rest of the day. So from a kayak perspective.
So Sunday we were out in Lanier, same thing. Found him in 15 foot and less shallow, busting bait. Once 9, 10 o'clock hit, started seeing him on those 15 to 20 foot drop offs down to 50, 60 foot brush piles. Yeah. So early morning top water, subsurface, that's a ticket. Once that sun gets up, you're going to still see the top water, but I think the better shot's going to be going, 20 foot and deeper.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, because one of the things that you don't have to deal with on these electric reservoirs, of course, is all the boat traffic. Now we deal with, I have found that the electric only guys and the kayak anglers do pretty well together. Justin looks better on camera than he does in person. Hey, there you go. Listen, he ain't not lying. Not lying. I'm having a look at you right now. So we go back. We can do this. We go back. We're going to do this. But no, he's a good looking fella and he's happy. That's good. That's a good way to be. But we do have to deal with the recreational kayakers. The one plus about the heat is it runs some of them people off. So you don't have to deal with them quite as much. They start coming out about March and you get them to March to May. But when it really gets hot, they kind of stay off. But I want to concentrate a little bit tonight. And we'll talk about all these lakes you fished and some you fished and the ones I fished on the actual true what the bass do in the summertime as far as deep and how we can attack them. What's the best ways. And we can start off with Latham up here. And the reason I'm starting off with Latham is it's the only one of all these that really has a big, huge population of spots on it. So it's a little bit different than all the rest of them. Would you both agree that the rest of the lakes on the list are pretty much largemouth only lakes?
Well, Hickory Log's got a lot of spots.
Yeah.
Is it finally got a lot of spots, but not to the level Latham?
No.
But so they are finally taking up there. Okay. That's. I knew there were some in there because you see the picture every once in a while. This is a spot, but I didn't know that they had finally took off. So we can kind of group these two together, but Latham's a little bit different beast because it does have bluebacks. Does Hickory Log have the bluebacks in it? Nobody's dumped them in there yet?
If they have, there's not a whole lot of them.
Right. Okay. So
it seems like the bait's about gone in Hickory Log from what it has been in the past.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, okay. We're going
to fish there last year, and you've seen bait balls consistently and more. From what I've seen online, people are just saying the bait it's pretty much come to bluegill, small crappie, and stuff like that. So it's just that natural.
Well, they had only put threadfin in there, right?
I think so.
Yeah, well, threadfin is the most useless bait fish in the world. Nathan Skinner, who's back there lurking behind Speece? That is Kaysen back there. Where did he end up going? Where did he hide? That's Eric's son. So he's kind of hiding back there. He didn't want to be too close to the camera. But let's start off at Latham. I always tell everybody it fishes like a mini Lake Lanier. If it had rock in it, it would be on the points and everything. It would be, to me, like Lake Lanier. When the sun gets up on Latham, like you can go early in the morning, and sometimes with the spots, there's topwater bite all day, just depending on their mood. But when that sun gets up above the trees, it seems to me like a lot of those fish do go down. They'll suspend down. Is that what you've kind of seen there?
Yeah, they'll go down deep, or they'll stay in the shadows. There's still shadows on Lathams when the sun gets up, so you can find the shallow bite still in the shadows, and then the deep bite. But I mean, I've seen last year we were throwing swim baits 6 inches under the water and had fish coming 40 foot up and biting them.
Yeah, that's why it's different to me than all the other lakes. So you fish some tournaments over there. Now, we were talking about it, and we're going to talk a little bit later about the weights and tournaments that we've seen, because I've seen kind of a decline. But you and Nick had a good bag earlier this year on Latham. You told me, what was it?
1974.
See, that used to be what it took to win on any given Saturday out there. We're talking 4 or 5 years ago. Now, on a typical Saturday tournament, you can get away with 14, 15 pounds and you can win a tournament.
Yeah.
So it's something's up with that. And I'm going to kind of figure out, well, I mean, you got any,
I kind of wonder if it's because there's so many spots, people get held up on catching those spots because they're kind of a little bit easier to catch. So I think they're getting into a school of spots and they just keep fishing for them instead of going and finding that big largemouth that's sitting somewhere.
That might be a good point. I didn't think about that. Now you fish Latham, you got some experience over there as well. So anything that kind of what I mentioned, with them going deep in the summertime, have you seen that in past with you?
So the spots, yeah. I mean, like you said, it is a mini Lanier without the rock and points. You're still going to find your largemouth up around the timber pockets in the back of the arms and everything. And if you can get back there and get around the trees and stuff, you're still going to find them,
Yeah. That's where you kayak guys have a little bit of advantage. Y'all can get back in that nasty stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things we got to figure out where we can get the kickers and stuff from. And those kickers are going to be back in parts where in a John boat, it's going to be a little bit harder. But even in kayaks, Nathan knows we can end up going over, have a damn stick that's 2 inches under the water, end up catching it on the bottom of the kayak. And we're sitting there looking like a bunch of weeble wobbles.
I've been
trying
there.
to get the kayak loosened. But yeah, you're still going to find them in the timber pockets in the back. You're still going to find them where they traditionally would be, around cover and around any kind of, protection.
Yeah. So Hog Wild says, I love that lake up there. And I'm assuming you're
Carter's.
talking, He's talking about Carter's.
Yeah.
Well, Latham's kind of the same way. A lot of people don't realize that you can catch fish out in the middle over 70, 80 foot because they suspend. And there's some humps over there that they're around and all that. And there's so much bait coming back and forth. But if you were going over to Latham, say tomorrow, going to be upper 90s, and you were going to fish the entire day, because I bet you two guys would do it a little bit differently. How would you approach it? And what kind of baits would you use to go after those fish in the summer heat?
So I would definitely start with topwater first thing in the morning. And I would just I'd probably drive out there and just look for them busting first thing and just try to get on some. And then after that, just start playing the shade, because I like to fish shallow. I hate fishing deep.
Yeah.
Or play the shade until the shade's gone, and then it makes me have to go deep.
Do you think the largemouth over there stay more shallow than people think?
Well, I think they do, but I also think they go deep now. I think they're having to adjust to the spots, and they're having to go out there and eat with them. Yeah,
because I've noticed on the schooling activity, you throw in there now, guys be going down, you see them busting, you throw a Kitech in there or whatever, you're out of every 10 fish, you're probably liable to catch 3 or 4 of them being largemouth now. Yep. They've kind of become, what's that term you guys use?
Pelagic.
Pelagic? Is it pelagic? Does that sound right?
They're just grouping together with them. It's the same thing on Lanier. Like last fall, spots busting all over, threw a Sebile and pulled out a 5.5 pound largemouth in the middle of a school of spots. So the largemouth, I think, are adjusting, especially on these lakes where the spots have taken over, because largemouth still got to eat. So they're going where the bait is, and if the bait is being chased around by spots, the largemouth are going to start responding as well, because they know the bait isn't sitting right in front of their faces anymore, because now they're being chased.
Yeah. JP Byron outside says, do y'all fish the shallow water part of the tunnel? I've seen fish there, but haven't caught them. Now, he's talking about the culvert on Latham. And I have
Other
fished,
side.
huh?
On the other side.
I'm assuming he's talking about the other side.
Northwest corner.
I've caught some fish. I've caught bass over there. Biggest Ned, and I know nobody likes throwing a Ned rig, but the biggest Ned rig fish I've ever caught was about a 4.5, 5 pound largemouth on the other side of it, throwing it right in the middle of all that junk. But I will tell you, that's probably a really good. A lot of guys go over there to fish for crappie. The one thing about Latham and that little thing is, for those that don't like to pay the $5 and come through during regular daylight hours, it gets pressured a lot at night. So just kind of keep that in mind. It does. But if you're bank fishing over there, you got to throw through. It's very sticky over there, a lot of down trees. Now, he was talking about he would still fish shallow at Latham right now. So you being in a kayak, if you were going tomorrow in all this heat, how would you approach Latham?
First thing in the morning, top water.
Same thing.
Like he said, I mean, minus once it gets up, if I can't find those shade pockets and points, I'd probably start looking for those drop offs in that 30 to 40 throw, shaky.
You don't mind throwing deep.
I don't like it, but it's one of those things when you're in a tournament, you got to get fish. And, you got to be able to be versatile.
Jason Payne goes, is that a Cherokee County lake? And I'm assuming you're talking about Latham. It's run by Cherokee County Water Authority. A little bit of the lake actually sits in Cherokee County, but the majority of the lake sits in Dawson County, because when the lake was supposedly being planned or built or whatever, it was going to be a joint effort, and then Dawson County pulled out. So now Cherokee County Water Authority runs it, but it is not a public lake. It is private property, because the way they've set up Cherokee County Water Authority, this is the way it's been explained to me, it's set up as a private entity. They still pay property taxes, and they run it like a business, a separate business. Now, if anybody knows differently, feel free to correct me, but that's kind of the way it was explained. They're in the business of water over there 100%, and fishing is a privilege. I know Mark that was running the lake one time told me a story about a guy come in there, just started raising Cain because, number one, they had hours and they closed it, and number two, they couldn't just do whatever they wanted in it, and he didn't like his tax dollars being used, and not being able to do that. And Mark said, now, wait a second. And he had to explain to that guy, your tax dollars aren't in this lake. This is all totally different. And it changed that guy's way of thinking. But let's see. So Skinner says, I've caught some nice spots in Hickory Log. Okay, I guess so. I've never caught a spot out of there. It is just that time of year to fish at night. Y'all ever hang into a big striper? He's talking on that pond prowler, so that's a different conversation going on. A spoon works in those deep spots in clear water too. Now, I do know that 4 or 5 years ago, everybody was throwing a big flutter spoon on Latham. I don't see that near as often. I don't know if the fish got conditioned to it or what. Do you ever throw a flutter spoon over there?
I throw it at Hickory Log.
Yeah,
I haven't threw it at Latham.
At Latham. There was a time when everybody was throwing it over there. All right, so Justin, if you're going deep, you're going with a shaky head. You're not doing any of the spoon stuff like just got brought up. You ever tried that over there?
Never tried it. I mean, sort of like what you were saying about that 5 years ago. The thing that people, I think, are really screwing up the most is all these new baits are coming out and everybody's trying this stuff. And, it's one of those things. You get a new toy, you're playing with it. These fish are seeing the same bait over and over and over again. So going back to a basics aspect, I mean, I know for a lot of people, I'm a power fisherman. I hate finesse. But going back to basics, spinner baits, decent top water, shaky head, ball and chain.
Yeah.
It's going to put fish in the
So
boat.
if you're going to shaky head, what color would you throw over at Latham? What have you had the best success on?
Watermelon, green pumpkin watermelon, something with usually green, but the pink has seemed to work well over there as well.
Yeah. Okay. What about you if you're throwing soft plastics?
Green pumpkin, and then I've started getting a kick on the disco green if I can find them. Like he was saying about going back to old baits, the ones that are discontinued, the zoom worm colors you can't find anymore. The baits you can't find anymore. Stuff like that seem to be coming back and working a whole lot better than they used to.
Yeah, so let me address this one comment. Dean Boland, speaking of kayaks, your new Crescent is waiting on you at Westbrook Supply Company.
I'm going to come get it.
Listen, I have been trying. You guys are open the same time I'm open. And then I've been trying to figure out a way to get down there and get it on those days when y'all are open and I'm open. So I know it's there. It's killing me that I haven't come down there and got it. And I don't want to send anybody down there that's not me, because I think that would be rude. So I am going to definitely make a concerted effort next week to try to get down there somehow.
So just to put a little jizzling that one.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Farmer is getting into kayaks as well.
He is.
He is buying himself a bona fide PWR.
Bona fide. All right, Farmer. There you go. So you better be big. He's a big boy. It better be stable is all I got to say.
Fits my fat ass.
He's bigger than you. He's a big old boy right there. So have any of you guys ever thrown black at Latham? That's a good color.
Yeah, they say there's leeches there now.
There's leeches,
So-
they say, and a lot of guys have gone to the black shaky head. But again, that goes back to it being normal. I mean, like an old school black is not sexy. It's not one of the new ones, but that's a good one for you guys to try over there too. So is it off limits after dark, or is it just the ramp that closes at 8 p.m.? Well,
I mean, it depends on how you look at it. It's a gray area.
it's a gray area.
Well, don't they have the gates though?
They have the
Yeah,
gates.
the gates are closed, but there's other ways to access it from
The
other
backside
directions.
is what I was saying.
Yeah.
I was talking specifically, JP, about guys that sneak in on the backside and fish around the banks on the other side of that culvert. So unless you got a gate key.
Right.
So anyway, that's us say. So David Weaver, has anyone ever fished Dog River Reservoir or Sweetwater Creek Park? I have not. And where is that located? I mean, tell us, David, where that's at. A lot of these lakes we call by different names. A lot of people up at the little Yahula Reservoir, in Dahlonega, its proper name is Lake Schwerner. Did you know that? I don't know who Mr. Schwerner was that they named it afterwards, but black is always a great color. Can't go wrong with it. Now, Blake, if you were going to Latham tomorrow, I got to make sure I keep Blake awake back there. What color you throwing? What did we do when we went out there?
Green pumpkin, wacky worm.
Put that camera on you so we can see your beautiful face. Now, what did we throw?
Green pumpkin, wacky worm.
And was it weightless?
No,
I was.
I wasn't.
Yeah, you wasn't. You ended up changing over to a sink. You started rigging yours Texas rig, kind of.
Texas rig with a Cinco, but when I was throwing wacky worm, I was just putting a nail weight in it.
You didn't tell me you sticking a nail weight in it.
I was taking them out of your tackle boxes, asking if you had it.
Dude, he's got that Spencer Strider mustache going on.
Put it back on your mustache. Look at that. He got a lot going on. I don't
will
know
say
about
one-
Spencer Strider though.
I will say one thing: the mullet definitely missed, but 100% better.
I'm too
without
gray
it.
for that now.
Did you watch us back in that day? So Blake used to have a mullet. I mean, it was as redneck as could be mullet. One night we wanted to raise money, and
Shaved his.
we wanted to raise $2,500 in a single night. And we told everybody if we raised $2,500 live right then and there, we would shave his head. And by gosh, we raised it, didn't we? Shaved. I think some of his hair is still down there on the floor. That's been how long ago, Blake?
Oh God,
3 years?
No.
3 years ago at
Probably
least?
longer than that.
It was the last time I was on.
Was you here that night?
So, and this was why I was a little like I was all giddy, and it's like, wait, last time I was on was actually the day before my dad passed. So it's
Oh, that's right. That's
but
right.
yeah, Blake was here and shaved.
We
I
shaved
don't
his
want to
head.
say shaved him, but we did
We cut the
Trim.
hell out of it.
trim the hell.
You know,
out
the
of
bad
it.
thing is that scared my kid after I did that. He didn't know who I was.
How long did that last?
It's called
A month, probably.
A month. I like Ryder. He's a nice dirt squirrel, Jeffrey Johnson says. So what the hell's a dirt squirrel?
Flavors.
Flavors? Oh. You ain't got nothing to be saving any flavor over.
I mean, Alex,
at the
got one
moment.
there.
Not at the moment.
Womb-
It's called a womb broom. All right, I'm learning some new lingo tonight. Now listen, he was responsible for the blue waffle episode too.
We're
Back,
not discussing. Look,
yeah,
rabbit holes are not going down
We're not.
tonight for right now.
But-
Later, maybe.
that's the yum yum saver. So I almost. Oh, yeah, let's go ahead and get it out of the way. Put the camera on, Eric. Eric, I need you to look at the camera and say yum yum.
Yum yum.
Okay, now put it on Speece.
Yum yum.
There we go. Y'all don't realize what I'm gonna do with all these yum yums. Have I told you what that means? I'll tell you after the show. I can't do it on air.
Hey, the
So-
people that sell the kayaks, y'all do financing? I'll come pick one up.
Finance a kayak,
Dude,
Damn things are expensive, Danny.
we got shop pay at Festive Water.
shop pay.
No.
There you go.
No.
Get you- what's up, Walton?
No undisclosed plug put there.
So, Danny, are you going to ICAST this year? Yes, sir. We will have a booth down there for the Real American Road Trip. So I will be close to the food court on the right-hand side when you get down there. I know that place like the
Why
back
am
of
I
my
not
hand.
surprised you have to stand right by the food?
Hey, listen,
Look
this
at
boy,
him.
look at this
I
body.
know,
It
I
takes a
know.
lot. It takes a lot to keep this. This is peak male performance right here. What do you is it not? We can't all look as good as Eric over there, you know. So that Dean definitely, and I think Walton will be down there. Those guys, so you guys, we'll all hook up. We hooked up with Walton and them last year.
Festival will be down this year.
You gonna be down there? Hey, it's nothing like going to Florida and you bring the same people you see up here. Speece, you've been hitting the hooch much. All right, since he asked, let's go ahead because I told you we'll go wherever the comments lead us.
I have not yet, but that is in the very future because Lanier is about to go bye-bye for me.
Why?
Well, just the wonderful jet skiers and wakeboarders.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember that. First time I got in a kayak was on that Friday of Memorial Day weekend, and that 444
that
tournament.
was the best thing ever coming out. If you could just envision Danny crouched up on a kayak in all but a fetal position, white-knuckled it with a paddle in hand.
It was
I
rough,
rolled
dude.
up on this guy, and you just see the wake rolling. It wasn't even bad. It was moderate wake, but Danny's
Moderate hell.
This is Danny.
Well, listen. Hey, listen. I about threw up out there. I almost got sick. I hadn't eaten all day. They want me to this tournament Friday night, Memorial Day weekend. I've had one Gatorade in my body. Y'all stole me out on the south side of Lake Lanier.
I did not throw you out there.
They put me out there, and I'm like, I see this point way out there. My mind, that's where the bass are going to be. So I paddled my happy. Actually, it was a foot thing.
You pedaled your way.
I pedaled my way out there, figured out how to steer the dang thing, got out there, and all of a sudden I'm going up and down. And I'm like, damn, I don't feel so good.
It's like deep sea fishing.
It is. So I paddled my way up into the back of corner of a cove and just did the rest of it. So, and they also didn't tell me how to measure that daggum fish. Have you ever tried to do that? You ever measured a fish in your life? I didn't know if you just did way
Well,
on.
sometimes when they're 11 3/4 on.
Oh, yeah, okay. You got to
them.
measure for that. So I catch about a 2.5 pound spot. And, you got to keep the mouth closed and you got to put your hand in the proper position and you're trying to hold that phone. Well, these buttholes didn't tell me. I put it up on my knees. They got this little system where they got a net right here and they got it tilted down. So if the fish jumps, it goes in the net and don't lose it. Nobody tells me this. So I'm trying it. And I finally, after wrestling this booger for about 30 seconds, I get my phone up and I'm getting ready to take that picture. And that son of a bitch goes, boom, takes off. And I said, this is why we use live wells and we weigh them in right now. Did I chum the waters? No, I didn't. And no, hog wild, I didn't drink a half gallon of kefir, and I won't ever do that again. For those of you that know, do not drink kefir. Drink it in moderation, or else you will shart. That is the way it goes. All right, so now how long do you think we'll finish up on Latham? Everybody goes out there and throws the Kitex because there's a lot of bait fish. They do your standard top waters. Sabille works over there, those kind of baits. But as we go into the summer, through the summer, July, August, when do you think normally in the history of Latham do they start transitioning back to kind of the fall bite?
I would say it's more closer to end of September.
So we're going to be in this pattern.
It's still going to be hot.
Yeah.
It's going to be later, I'm sure.
So we're going to stay in that pattern on Latham for a while.
For a while.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because air temp can drop. It's going to you look at Lanier this year. Within a 3-week period, it went from mid-60s to 80s, like that.
Yeah, it did go quick.
So it don't matter. That air temp has to get Lanier back down to the 60-degree temps. We're going to have 3 to 4 weeks of 50-degree overnights.
That's probably October.
That water, yeah.
You're right. It's probably
October. Late September, or early October.
So it ain't worth fishing Salacoa. And that's a lake that people like to talk about, but at the same time, they're like, don't tell nobody about.
What is Salacoa? I've never even heard of it.
Salacoa from the shop ain't but about 30 minutes from here. You ever fish?
Even heard of it?
Okay, you know it ain't far, is it?
No, it's not far. But that's the other thing with our tournament trail. We've got to fish some of the bigger reservoirs because we've got 20 people.
Yeah, y'all can't put it on there no more.
So we can't do. There's a lot of these that we can't do anymore.
Yeah, so Salacoa is located. I think it's in Pickens. Or is it still Pickens County? And it's only open, or has in history. It closes during the wintertime, and they draw it down. But one of the good things about that, it's on Red Bud Road. For those that want to know, one of the cool things at Gordon County. So yeah, so it's kind of yonder way. But they had been closing it down during the wintertime, which allows, and they draw it down, which allows the stuff along the banks to kind of grow a little bit. And I think that helps it. No, we're not going down that rabbit hole again.
Is it worth it, though?
Dude, they catch some big fish over there. I know that. But I mean, I couldn't tell you how to fish
it.
it.
Open on weekends?
It's open full time now.
Fantastic, because I need a spot for next 3 weeks.
Okay, you fishing like a tournament kind of thing?
Yeah, I got a 2-day. Got to fish 2 different bodies of water.
That might be
And
one to check out.
It can't be the same spot twice. So I was thinking Double River, but there's a little honey hole nearby that I don't got to drive for.
It may be. So Philip Hutchinson said this is guys that we're talking about how long it might be hot. He says long range forecast for the southeast is going to be roasting through at least early July. Really need a tropical system to come through. So yeah, ain't nothing like praying for a hurricane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, please, Lord, send us a hurricane. Yeah, they closed the lake. This is Salacoa. They closed it from late November through, I think, March, and that's from Hog Wild out there. So both those res in the park are in Douglas County. So I don't – oh, that's David Weaver, the ones that he mentioned earlier are in Douglas County. There's a lot of these electric-only lakes that you have to be a county resident to fish. They've changed a lot of it, and that's to keep all you yahoos out there from showing up and catching all the fish. But fair or not fair, that's just the way it's going. So and I in history, though, that's kind of – I think you're right about Latham, though, is that mid to late September before we get a few cool nights. Now let's transition over to another lake that a lot of guys I know wanted to talk about, and I especially because I got a tournament coming up there in a couple of weeks, and that's Hickory Log. For those that don't know, that's in Canton, Georgia. I had somebody tell me they think it's like 450 acres. Is that close? I know Latham's 334, I think, at full pool. But let's see, what are you looking it up? How big it is? What time of the year does Black Shoals close up?
Bear Creek.
Well, now you said Bear Creek.
Black Shoals doesn't close.
Okay,
isn't Bear Creek that big bass lake in Athens or whatever?
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Kind of.
It's a lake it's Lake in Athens.
I heard there's some big ones in that one.
Yeah, but I've heard that's one of those that you got to fish for a big one for a long time for you really.
Yeah,
get
it's
big.
not something you're going to show.
Is it more like a bowl?
No.
Is it? Which one over there is just basically like a bowl with no structure?
Any lake in South Georgia seems like.
Pretty much. Okay, you're right.
I mean,
but is there Sandy Creek over there? Is that one too over that way? I've heard people talk about one of those. The one in Athens.
I think that's Bear Creek.
That's Bear Creek. I think he's talking about that.
I don't remember seeing anything bowl-like when I was there this year.
Well, maybe I'm thinking of another lake. So I don't. Does anybody know what time Bear Creek closes? I know some of the trails are going over there now. I think Dahlonega fishes over there. Dahlonega John boats.
I think we've got it next year, or it's on the schedule, maybe to be next year.
Maybe to be next year. I heard Rocky Mountain Authority's got a little pissy about the speed of all the electrics. Well, I can tell you we probably caused that. The first electric elite tournament that's now turned into the electric fishing series. The lake says no wake, and none of us that are going 8-9 miles an hour think about it being a wake. But all of a sudden we blast it off, and here goes all these John boats out through there, and so it just depends on what your definition of wake is. Well, according to the authorities there, who were waiting on us when our weigh-in came in, it can be caused by an Elko or e-propulsion, so too much wake. So, yeah, we got in a little bit of trouble with that.
What do you do when you leave the tournament?
What do you mean?
It's not – I've never seen an electric boat blast off.
We zoom off. We do a zoom off.
There's one that blasts
off. Yeah, now Carrie Bell blasts off. That joker's running 20, 30 mile an hour.
I can't say much. I'm hitting 7 miles an hour in the kayak.
Yeah, no, that was like we were fishing against Carrie over there at Latham the last tournament. That was kind of he was over there right beside me, and I don't know why. I said, "You want to race?" I was just joking. You know, no, I ain't racing you. But when we zoomed off,
gone.
He was
running
75 stealth. So what is that? Like 196 volts?
I think so.
It's listen, like the batteries could kill you. It's a setup, dude. He's got a very nice boat. It's the nicest all electric boat I've seen.
And that's going back to you were talking about not wanting to get into the stumps and the timbers. I think that's got a lot to do with it too. Is everybody's getting these nice electric rigs that they're not wanting to beat off a timber like they did the 10-foot John boat back in the day.
Shit,
they
Danny's
didn't care.
Put the camera on you, Blake.
Danny don't give a damn.
That's right. Listen, what did we do that time on Latham? What did I do?
We was in like 5 foot of water and timber, beating it off everything.
We wasn't beating off nothing.
You're lying. We was beating off everything.
No, listen.
How many times did we hang that boat
Blake is
up?
totally not catching what he was saying.
Did it sound like a snare drum going on the bottom as Danny's zipping around those pockets?
No, dude, listen, I'll put that boat of mine anywhere on Latham. I'll go through the nastiest. We get stuck up. We're having to rock the boat off. I don't care. I don't have nice boats like Carrie. You know, I got a 17.5-foot Triton. and I'm sticking that thing.
Ain't been washed in 4 years.
Well, it ain't been
You
washed.
hey, Blake, you know how you clean that?
Leave it in the rain.
No.
Apparently.
A little hot tooey.
A little hot tooey.
Yeah.
Spit on that thing, Blake. That's why I was trying to tell you we wasn't beating off nothing back there. Is what I was trying to get you to say.
I hate you.
We're beating off everything back there. No, we wasn't.
Just a
Anyway,
little concerned you're talking about beating off stuff with Blake back there.
no, I'm saying we weren't. We weren't. No yum yum on my boat. No Brokeback Mountain. So anyway, though, but I will. But there was one night. Now, again, there's a few of us that have some extra privileges. And so me and my cousin were fishing on the backside of Latham. We were in my 1436 Alumacraft. And one of the ways when I'm fishing by myself that I didn't have a big anchor. So I'd run that thing up on the log and just hang out for a while. Well, we did that. We were back near the waterfall and a thunderstorm came up. We could not get off that stump. The only way to get off that stump is I had an old fish basket and a big long rope, and we lassoed that joker, throwing it at stumps, and finally caught one and pulled ourselves off. And we had to ditch the boat. We got out of the boat. It was nasty over there. So
Redneck rodeo.
big time, big time. All right, let's get to Hickory Log. Now, Hickory Log, we kind of talked about it a little bit in Canton. Apparently now there's a good population of spots, but it is a predominantly largemouth lake. Now, that lake fishes differently in sections because you got the S-turns in the river channel. That's totally different than when you get out there by the dam. That's big water. Then you've got the little under the culvert section that used to have lily pads. I heard when they drawed the lake down, it kind of killed them off a little bit this year. But my experience with Hickory Log is we call it Dinkery Log for a reason, but not because there's not big fish. It's just because there's so many 12 to 15-inch bass in that lake. Like, I honestly think of any lake around here that needs some fish took out of it, it would be Hickory Log because I don't think there's enough bait there. And you were talking about that it has threadfin. So
You just don't see them anymore. Like when
And
we
now
fished
there's
it a
nothing.
few weeks ago, we couldn't find a bait ball hardly.
So how did you guys fish it when you were there? I mean,
Not very good.
Well, I mean,
No, it was. We had one fish at 11 o'clock,
it can be tough at times.
but then when we found them, we had our limit. Then we found another spot, and we cold 6 times. So it seemed like when we did find them, they were all grouped together, and they were all about the same size. So if you caught a 2-pounder, you're probably going to catch 2 or 3 more of them.
Yeah. And that's something I hear a lot of people say. If you catch them, especially with spots like on Lanier.
And in the summertime, seems like
Yeah.
they group up.
They group up kind of by size. And your big fish on Hickory Log are more kind of isolationist. You know, I don't know. That's just what people are telling me. Like, you might can pop one. I've seen in the last 2 years a 12-pounder. Well, it was 11 something that Jesse Benson caught. But then when he took it to his taxidermist, he said it was 12. He caught that one. I've seen guys take some 7-8 pounders out of there. Now, to me, though, and I was telling you before the show, those were all caught deep. That's just been my experience. So over there, somebody that's not any good, I can catch fish there, but I have never caught any size. What's the secret to Hickory Log as far as size? You got any suggestions?
I don't have a suggestion. Last tournament I was at, dude caught one off a frog right outside the boat ramp 10 minutes after launching. Like a 6.5 pounder.
Now, there is that little section right there along the road that's at the boat ramp where that creek channel comes in. Everybody knows
No, I'm
about
just
that now. But that's when the grass gets is the grass there again this year? That section gets really grassy. So you can catch some fish, but you kind of got to stay out in the middle and all that. But when you go up through the S-turns at Hickory Log, you get to the island. And then that's when it starts getting deeper and deeper, and you're going up through there. Michael Fox, hey, what's up, buddy? I ain't seen you in a while. I found a few bait balls at Hickory Log last Friday evening. Largemouth were chasing them good around sunset. And that is something they do school over there at Hickory Log. You get largemouth schooling up. But I've never caught a big one out of those schools.
Well, the other part, like he said, was around sunset. So how many times are you fishing the pre-fish for a tournament or in a tournament that's around sunset?
I've never fished Hickory Log in the afternoon.
So, I mean, it could just be they're getting full all night, and then in the morning they're going back and chilling out away from everybody.
Quite possible. Hickory Log is a pain. The tournament. Oh, good grief! So Dustin Diamond was saying Hickory Log is a pain because the tournament a couple of weeks ago they caught 45 fish and only had 6 pounds. I can believe that. That's why we call it Dinkery Log. But it reminds me of a bigger Yahula, and there is just one ramp at Hickory Log, Ken Pruitt. That's it now. And it is not big enough for anything.
No,
that's
no
right.
Courtesy dock.
No courtesy dock. that is the one place that people have to fish. So when you're coming back in, I always feel awful for a tournament because you got a father there with his kids just trying to catch some brim or something right there. But it is that lake fishes. And let me ask you this, because I've heard guys say this, and we're talking jig colors, that anything from the boat ramp on Hickory Log up to the island right there, and that's where it's more shallow. I know guys that will throw darker colored jigs in that water because it's a little more stained up. And when they get up the lake, you go into your traditional PB&J, something with a little bit of chartreuse. Do you ever throw a jig on there a lot?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you kind of find that out. I mean, I know you can't give me your juice color, but
No,
still.
but I mean, it's really clear once you get up the lake, and that's another big thing. I think when you get up there, you're going to have, 10-pound test line, 8-pound test line, because it's so clear they can see everything.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's basically 2 lakes in one, because once you pass that island, it's like fishing Burton or Lake Seed. Super clear. You can, most of the time, you can see 15, 20 foot down.
And everybody knows about the one point that everybody races to. There's been a lot of big fish caught around that one point, but I find that up the lake, to me, the fishing's better as far as numbers. When you get into that clear water, maybe that's more the way I like to fish because I'm more a finesse guy, and I got to change that. So Carrie Bell says Hickory Log sucks, but that's the problem. Is it's got everything you need. If they would stock that lake with like gizzard shad, something like Rocky Mountain does, put something in there for the largemouth, a big population of gizzard shad or something. Not everybody wants the bluebacks, of course, and I'm kind of been told bluebacks are really bad for a lake. They're great for the fish to get to eat them, but the bluebacks spawn right after bass spawn. So once you get all the little fingerlings that are hiding in the grass or along the bank or cover, that's when the bluebacks push up and they eat those things. So that's why I think Rocky Mountain's so good. You fished Rocky Mountain, haven't you?
Yeah, but it hadn't been good lately, it seems like. It's been a little bit less too.
I think it's been highly pressured because the problem is, and not that I have an issue with it, but one guy posts, same thing happens at Hickory Log. One guy posts a 9-pounder, next day, triple the amount of boats there because they're all out chasing.
You can't do, that's one thing you can't do on a small body of water is make a post.
It's like when a big deer gets shot. Buddy, there ain't another one around.
That's right.
And I have no problem with people posting it. It's just like too many people are chasing that, like, I don't want to say once in a lifetime, but that new PB. And when you're talking about a small body of water, Hickory Log's not huge. It's sizable, but it's not huge.
It's like 440. What you find? 411 acres. So 70 more than Latham.
So somebody can cover that whole thing in a full day.
Oh, yeah.
And
in a kayak.
Mine does 7 miles an hour. Thank you, Blake.
Somebody who's paddling.
Now, paddling's
I'm
different.
not paddling because I'm fat. I'm fat and lazy.
That's right. He's my kind of guy. He got the motor on the back of that thing. But, yeah, no, you're right. And that's the one thing you can't do with a small reservoir. You can get away with it on Lanier. I know guys that do fishing reports, and some of them put very specific GPS locations. GON magazine goes fishing with somebody, and they put, the funny thing about this, guys, if you are reading that GON magazine, those guys that are taking the guys out, they ain't taking them to like their best spots. They're taking them to them community holes that most everybody knows anyway. Yeah,
because they're out pre-fishing. They're finding where the groups are at.
Yeah.
They pull 1 or 2 fish out that are what most people would consider good. Like somebody goes and finds a whole stack of 3.5 to 4 pound spots. They're going to take a guide there all day. They're not going to take them to where they're finding their 5, 6.
For sure, especially that. Now, Phil Hutchinson, do y'all feel like the state manages those lakes properly? And here's where you get into the dilemma with a lot of the electric-only reservoirs. The state don't run them. So Hollis Q is private. I think
Hickory Log's owned by the city of Canton, right?
I think they sold it off to Cobb County.
Okay. Well,
but it's not on a state level. So I don't know how much they utilize. Hard Labor Creek out there, that's probably – what county is that laying in? It's where Loganville's at.
Yeah, I'm not.
Monroe, any of you flatlanders out there. But none of it's really – are any of these lakes at all in the state of Georgia state run or anything? So
I think they're all local, and most of them are actually set as watershed.
Now,
watersheds are water reserves like Latham is.
Yeah. Now, I think Rocky Mountain's a little bit different in that that is a PFA. Like so that's a public fishing area. So I think Rocky Mountain might be state run. And I will tell you this.
Yeah, it's state run because it's now listed as a trophy bass fishery.
Yeah. And I will say this. You go to Rocky Mountain, you're going to see the game wardens there the whole time. That's where they're at, and they take that like very serious. And again, maybe there is a difference in how it's run. The shad are huge at Rocky. I'm serious. You can go over there and see 8-9 inch gizzard shad all
Bigger
day
than
long.
most at Hickory Log.
Huh?
Bigger than most of the bass at Hickory Log.
They are. No, that's true. And so that's the one thing about Hickory Log. Now, if we're going to fish Hickory Log tomorrow in 100-degree heat, where's Eric going? Not your juice spot, but I mean in general.
I mean, I'm not going to go far from the boat ramp to begin with.
Because you like shallow.
Well, that and because when you get there early, you got to get on that bite early, and I know there's fish there most all the time. So
You got
Right.
all
go ahead
that
and get
grass
on
around the
before
boat
going
ramp and
further.
everything. That's where you got to hit. Like the largemouth are going to be sitting in timber and brush, and they're going to be sitting in those grass lines. So all those that literally 100 foot down from the boat ramp on either side.
Okay, and those, but I would consider those. And Richie Rock and Roll, that's a hell of a name too, dude. I appreciate you joining us. Rocky is state run, so yeah, I thought that's the way Rocky was. Now, would you consider those bass? We're talking pretty much largemouth in that section of Hickory Log to be brim eaters.
Yeah.
They're up there for brim. They're not chasing shad or anything like that. I'm not saying shad don't get back in there and they can, but for the most part, those are what you would consider brim eaters. So if you were fishing that section, you're going to try to do some mimicking of bluegill or something similar
Swim
to that.
jig, stuff
Swim
like
jig.
that.
I heard people throwing Van Halen rocks, Danny. Woohoo. That's right, Richie Rock and Roll. Best band, best guitarist to ever live. Don't even argue with me, Speece. Not tonight. You're here. I know you're a Led Zeppelin guy. He come in with his Led Zeppelin shirt. And
Blake, go ahead.
Go ahead, put it on him. The first thing he says when he walks in is Van Halen sucks. And I said, no, he got to cover that up. But
Got to fire him up, man. First thing out of his mouth is, oh, look, the damn Yankees here.
well, I wasn't wrong. You was wrong, though. Anyway. But so at what point do you think it transitions in that lake over to more of a shad? I know there's brim eaters all around the lake, but those largemouth that are out there schooling that everybody talks about over at Rocky, the shad eaters, the threadfin, they're out there chasing threadfin and stuff. At what point of that lake does that become the more predominant? Is it once you get into the big open water about 2/3 over the lake? So that lake fish is different.
Water.
So if somebody was fishing it tomorrow, you'd concentrate on the first half of Rocky. You're concentrating
Hickory Log.
on Hickory Log. Yeah, I got Rocky in the brain right now. Hot Rod Dave, Hickory Log Creek Reservoir is jointly owned project by Cherokee County Water Authority and the city of or that might be Cobb County. CCMWA.
Oh.
Cherokee County.
No, I don't know.
No.
Hey, Hot Rod Dave, is it Cobb County or Cherokee County? If you could please help us out with that
I
right
think
there.
it's Cobb County because Cherokee is way north.
I heard that.
Or
What?
south, sorry.
No, it's in Canton. That's Cherokee County. Yeah, it's in Cherokee County.
Hickory? Oh,
Yeah,
no,
it
Hickory.
is.
Sorry, I was.
I think the big bass on the log eat millions of 10-inch bass, my buddy John said. And that's true. I tell everybody there's two types of bass everywhere, but especially in Hickory Log. 12-inch bass and bass that eat 12-inch
And right now, it
bass.
seems like the big bass are the healthier ones. It seems like the smaller ones are more unhealthy than the bigger ones, which a few years ago it was the other way around, it seemed like. But now it seems like the bigger fish are the healthier ones.
Now, have you ever heard this? And John is Cherokee County. So Cherokee County. So Cherokee County Water Authority in the city of Canton. This is something that John can attest to. Shannon Gorman, the aquatic biologist, was telling us on a podcast. I think we've got it on a podcast that just because you see a 12-inch bass does not mean that is a yearling. That there's stages in bass's life that when they get to a certain size, that's when their mouth actually really expands. But if there's not enough food, no, actually, he said it's Cobb County, Marietta Water. I thought it was Cobb County that was over there. I thought I'd heard that. So Cobb County and City of Canton joint project. That a 12-inch bass can be 6-7 years old. If there wasn't enough food around or something happened when it was younger, it will always stay 12 inches. That there's a stage in the life of a largemouth bass, and again, I'm going off what somebody's told me, that when they get to 2 or 3 pounds, where they really can get that mouth expands, if they can make it past that, those are the ones that will grow into the giants. If the ones that can't make it past that will always stay small. I didn't know that. And you could take a fish scale and pluck it on the backside of it, read it like you would if the rings in a tree. Did you know that?
Yeah, but it's just like anything else. You don't eat for a year, you're going to not be the same size you are.
True. But this
And-
happens
and
when they're young, and it
Well,
just
yeah,
stunts them for life.
you look at, not trying to be
Go ahead.
coastal or anything, but the kids in Ethiopia ain't 6 foot that are eating.
Well, I ain't been to Ethiopia, so I don't know. Again, opinions of the guest of the Fish North Georgia Tuesday Nighter are theirs and theirs alone. I really don't know, to be honest with you. So, has mapping been updated for these smaller lakes like Hickory Log? I know some buddies that go out and map on their own that have mapped Latham, really done good. I don't know about public access to that, if it's on the web or anything. I've never heard of it.
Most of it don't even show up. Like when you use like Google Maps or anything, half of it don't show up anyways. I mean, Warner shows up, Hickory Log, and a couple of the other ones. But like if you go into your like Lake Master or whatever your sonar unit is, it don't show anything.
I will tell you a good thing that you can do on Hickory Log is if you go to Google Earth and it has that feature where you can go back in time, you can see Hickory Log. And I don't know if they've done it for Latham yet or not, but you can see Hickory Log when it was just a creek. And then when they started clearing it out and as they dug it all out and built the dam and then watched it fill up. So you can kind of get a really good idea of where the creek channel has always been. I know you can do that on Hickory Log. Now, you in a kayak on Hickory Log, did you ever really venture up into what he's calling the clearer water, the upper third of the lake? How did you fish it?
I didn't fish it.
You didn't fish it.
Stayed up in the shallows. I went down and checked around, but when you're going through and looking at an area and you don't see anything, that you don't see marks, you don't see anything there, you're not going to waste your time there.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good feeder arms or arms going off once you get up there as well. So you still can fish shallow.
I mean, there's
Is that kind of where you would
there's
stick at?
still plenty of areas that you can fish, but when you're seeing more bait and more stuff from the island to the boat ramp, you venture down, you don't see what you want to see. You're going to go right back to where you were seeing what you wanted to see, and just hoping to find that one or two kickers in it.
So if you're going out in a kayak tomorrow on Hickory Log, let's break it down in half the lake. So the first half of the lake from the boat ramp up, how are you fishing? And what kind of baits are you throwing in this heat?
First thing in the morning is going to be topwater buzzbait, Chopo, which we know you hate.
I do.
Possibly a frog if there's enough grass sticking up and out. But besides that, going back to spinnerbait around grass lines, chatterbait around grass lines, just looking for where that grass and timber and stuff is going to be.
Right.
Because that's where they're going to be at if they're in there. If they're not, they're going to be out in that deeper water. And then you're just going after them, jig, shaky head, weighted wacky rig, just something to get it down there quick. Because if they're down there, they're still swimming. If you got to wait for a wacky rig to get down there 20, 30 seconds, they could.
But you're using your forward facing sonar for that, right?
I don't have forward.
Okay, so how do you know they're swimming?
Well, bass ain't sitting in the same
Fish
bottle.
swim, man.
He's about to be sleeping down there. All right, so hey, you get to the upper half of it. You still gonna just stay around the banks and kind of beat the banks, so you're not gonna go out in the middle at all.
I mean, if there's stuff there if there's bait there,
Yeah.
if I'm marking bait or I'm marking fish, then yeah. And if I'm doing something like that, I'm going to go finesse jig or shaky head.
A finesse jig.
The reason for a finesse is it's not going to be too big to just go down and crack. It's going to go down slowly, which in the summer, fish are not going to be, they're either going to be super lethargic where they're going to just be sitting there waiting for something, or they're going to be actively feeding. I'm targeting the actively feeding fish. If they're not biting, then I'm going on the ones that I got literally right in their face.
Okay.
And with the finesse jig, it's not going to go from 0 to 50 feet like that. It's going to take some time to go down. That way, if there's anything sort of, I don't want to say lingering, but anything sitting mid-water level, it's going to go past their face at a slower rate.
Okay, I got you there. What's up, Clint Bartlett? Yeah, there's way too many podcasts live right now. I get it, but you're at the right one now. So what about you? Did we cover that? How would you fish the first half of that lake tomorrow? Y'all keep saying topwater early, which everybody's going to do.
Yeah.
Are you throwing the same kind of things he's throwing, the buzz baits, the frogs?
Yeah,
and that kind of
pretty
stuff?
much. Yeah, and then maybe even just like a walking bait, like a sexy dog or something like that kind of walks that I can slow down, or a popper
Yeah.
that I can kind of slow down just a little bit instead of a fast topwater bait.
Talking about poppars and sexy dogs.
Put the camera on you there, beautiful. You got to see your face.
Talking about the poppar and the sexy dogs, what do you think works better on these reservoir lakes? Because I know like a bass pond, I'd prefer a popper instead of like a sexy dog or
I think
walking
a
tail.
popper works better for sure.
Yeah.
On the smaller lakes.
And that's just because of the commotion, you reckon? Or
Maybe, or because you're slowing it down a little bit.
I think it's going to the.
You can work it slower and still keep what you're trying to do. I just got a couple Mega Bass Pop X's in that were custom painted, and it's versatile. You can sit there and, pop, pop, pop the whole way across. You can sit there, pop, let it sit for 3-4 seconds.
yeah,
Pop it again. So you can work it if the fish are not, blowing top water consistently. You can keep it in that area where if they're going to blow up on it, it may have to sit a second or two.
okay. Well, let me ask you this: since you brought up the popper, are you throwing bluegill colors? Or are you throwing shad colors? Are you throwing the chromes? Or are you throwing, like one that might look like a baby bass or a frog or something like that?
I'm just throwing a white one with a feather on the back of it.
Just simple, white with a feather.
White with a feather on the back.
Well, okay. What about you?
It depends on what it's outside. If it's cloudy and overcast, black or white bone.
Yeah,
But if it's dead bare sun, chrome.
chrome.
I like a 6 cents ones. You can throw them a country mile.
The 6 cents.
Yeah.
Okay. This is something that's kind of surprised me that neither one of you have said because I see it all the time. Y'all ain't talked about a fluke. I hear a lot of people talking about a fluke over at Latham, of course, but at Hickory Log, it seems like when people post on the Fish North Georgia group page, flukes, a lot of flukes, a lot of white flukes, a lot of pearl flukes. Is that just something you don't like throwing over there, or is that the secret?
I mean, I like throwing it, yeah, but I like a fluke to me, you got to work a little bit slower too. So especially like if I'm pre-fishing for a tournament or even the tournament, I want something quick like the sexy dog or the buzz bait to find the fish first, and then I'll slow it down a little bit after that. Because like you said, once you find the fish, you need to stay there for the fish.
Yeah.
If they quit biting, you go off somewhere else, come back to that spot later on and maybe pull a Carolina rig instead of a buzz bait. Where
Okay.
you got bites at, because there's still fish there. They're just somewhere, they're doing something different.
Okay. That's good. What about you on the fluke?
Same thing. I mean, I'm looking for that active bite. If I don't see that active bite, the fluke, I actually like throwing more around docks, open boat slips, and timber that's exposed out of the water.
Okay. So there is a little bit of timber on Hickory Log that you can. No boat docks or
Yeah.
anything. So that's kind of sucks. Colors, same. I mean, you still going with the same kind of white, just straight
and
white?
Chartreuse, white and all chartreuse. Only two that I keep.
Okay. Do you throw a shaky head over there a lot?
Mhm.
Do you guys, when you're fishing a shaky head, do you guys on these smaller body reservoirs do kind of something similar to what we do on Lanier, where we're dipping the tail in chartreuse? Do you think it makes as much of a difference on a smaller reservoir?
I do, but I don't think it's the color chartreuse that's doing it. I think it's the garlic or the smell that's doing it.
So you're a
So I
big
think
scent
you
guy.
can spray it. You can spray something on it that doesn't change the color, and you get the same effect.
Okay.
Because I would actually spray it on my jigs too. I don't just do it on worms. I'll spray it on a jig.
What's your go-to set?
I mean, it just depends. But I mean, it changes by where I'm at. I may grab one at Walmart or whatever. As long as it's a garlic scent, I really don't.
So
care.
garlic, it
Just a
doesn't
garlic.
matter the
It doesn't
brand.
matter who makes it or what it is, as long as it's a garlic scent.
And we're not going down that rabbit hole again because everybody tells me, I always say, why garlic? And they say, if you bite a bait fish, it might even be JP Vernon. I got to do it one of these days on the show. If you bite a shad or something,
Tastes like garlic.
tastes like garlic, and to a bass, they say it tastes kind of like blood or something. Or
Well,
I
it
don't
means
know.
something's getting eaten.
Something.
Because if they smell that means something's getting eaten around them, because that's the smell they smell. Is what I've always been told.
Do you think scent makes that much of a difference?
I do.
You do. So you're big on the scent. You're big on the scent. What about you?
I will spike tip my trailers all the time.
And garlic?
Yeah, usually, I have the spike at markers. So
Yep.
usually the tails, I'll paint the garlic. Sometimes I'll go with the red, just depending, like late fall, early fall, late fall. Red seems to be a hotter color than the chartreuse.
Mm-hmm.
So
We do that on Lanier. We'll start dipping it more in the methylate kind of orange a
You
little
ever
bit.
done it the other way, where you dip the whole worm but the tail?
No. Tell me about
Try that
this.
one time. Just
Tell
try
me-
it one
no,
time. It's
tell
just
me.
something different. It's something different.
I tell you what we will do when we're throwing a shaky head and we're dipping the tail and we're getting short strikes, we will turn around and instead of dipping the tail, we'll dip the head, the hook part. And if that seems like what they're keying in on, I have done that, but I have never dipped the whole worm and then
Leave the tail.
interesting. So you've done that, I assume,
I've done it.
and it has worked.
But I could have not dipped it in anything and got a bite. I don't know.
But in your mind, it's like,
my
hey,
mind it worked.
that's all that matters. Jeremiah's got a pretty cool comment, and it is true. The easiest thing to do is either show them baits they've never seen or use common baits in new ways they don't see. The fluke is a good example of that on all these bigger reservoirs because guys are using them on ball head jigs now and going deep with them. That, when the fluke came out, most everybody thinks, okay, top water, just subsurface, pop, but they're going down deep after them jokers now.
Well, it's because they've got the forward-facing sonar and they can see those brush piles or whatever they're going after, so they know they can keep it right above it. Otherwise, they're going to get tangled up. It's the same thing with a chatterbait. I know guys that throw chatterbaits 30 foot deep over a brush pile and just let it go right over it and watch it go over it.
Now, you know what they're doing on Lanier now that they haven't been doing in the past? The common, and I know we're talking small lakes, but this is just something that we've been talking about in the shop for the last couple of weeks. The common thing is to go over a brush pile, bring top water, then you work your Sebile style bait or something like that, and then you go down. A lot of guys are going back old school and they're burning spinner baits over these brush piles for a couple of reasons. Number one, they haven't seen it as much. And number two, it looks like shad's still fleeing through that. On a windier day, they'll burn a spot sticker mini me or Georgia Blade's got a hidden weight and some shad colors, and they're burning them over brush piles. And they're not talking about it a lot on social media, but it is happening. And it's just something different, kind of going to what Jeremiah says. That's a common bait. Most people think, hey, let's go beat the bank, beat your down trees, kind of like what you were saying, timber with the spinner bait. But guys now are going back to it, throwing it over brush and burning it. Kind of like what you do, Sebile.
I want to use something heavier though, because I mean you can burn it across the top, but if you're talking about 40-foot brush pile, and you burning a spinnerbait subsurface, I think you'd want something a little bit heavier.
But you can get like the hidden weight ones. That's like the mini me, and then the Georgia Blade's got a hidden weight one that 3/4 ounce. You're throwing heavier ones. Yeah. But now if Tim Hancock was on here, he'd be throwing that big old 3-ounce spinnerbait. He throws 5-ounce spinnerbait with the 2-foot blade. He'd be down there on them things. He'd be slow rolling it. But I think he does fast too. I think he does a little bit. But that's just something that I've been hearing this summer that I haven't heard in summers past.
Go back to originals and change it up.
Yeah, that's what it is. So I got you on the first half of Hickory Log. Now we get out to the big water. What is Eric Richards throwing on the big water at Hickory Log?
Well, it depends on what time of day it is. If it's still early, I'm still bank fishing, timber off the bank, points that come out, stuff like that. Later in the day, I try to find those fish that are feeding maybe in 20-foot deep of water on schools of shad, and I'll throw a flutter spoon or a regular spoon or spot choker or whatever, just change it up, throwing different things. So that's
so you kind of cruise out there in the big water looking for bait.
I'll move out in the big water the warmer it gets. So towards midday, I'll get back into just out in the middle of nowhere.
So do you think those bass kind of go deep a little bit because the sun's up, but if bait comes up, they rush?
Yeah, and especially that part of Hickory Log, because when the sun comes up, the water's so clear, it's bright and it's warm and it's hotter because there's nothing to kind of break it up.
That is a clear lake.
So they have to go deeper.
Okay, all right.
Or maybe they're shallow and they're just seeing us, and that's why we can't catch them on that side of the lake. I don't know.
Have you ever thrown a swim jig over there?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the guys that talk about it tend to throw the darker color ones that I've been talking to. But I went over there a couple years ago with a swim jig that we make here that was white with orange in it. And I got up the lake, but I was in the shallower arms off to the side up there doing old Alabama shake, but I was in 2, 3, 4 foot of water bringing that thing through. At least that time it worked. Now, again, I didn't catch any size. That's the one bad thing. But I caught plenty of fish with a fast-moving bait. And it's hot. It was hot. I remember that tournament. They had just come off bed, so it might be a little bit.
But when you think about it, if you were catching plenty of fish, it's just because there wasn't a big fish there. So a lot of people, I think, when they're catching a lot of small fish, they try to change up what they're doing instead of just moving areas that's got the same thing going on and look for your bigger fish.
Yeah. That's probably what we should have done.
Catching off a shaky head is, 1-pounders, and then they just quit using the shaky head, even though they caught 40 of them.
Right.
That doesn't mean you're not going to catch a big one. It just means you want fish in the right spot.
Wasn't there.
Wasn't there.
You sit there and, just like on the river, you can hit. I was just down at the Flint 3 weeks ago, and literally I couldn't find a fish over 12 inches. But I didn't throw away my plan because I'm catching fish on it. So if the fish are there, it's just finding that one that's going to matter.
Yeah, and just working that. You're talking about just moving that down. It could be bigger fish. Like what you were saying earlier, 1 pounders hang out with 1 pounders, 2 pounders. That's other than the spawn, I think you're probably pretty much correct. Carson Fowler wants to know, and we'll start with you, Speece. What are you fishing the banks with? Now, we all know you're talking top water, so you've mentioned buzz baits, chopos, poppers. But if you're going down, you're fishing subsurface, you're beating the banks. And keep in mind in the heat. We want to kind of concentrate on the heat tomorrow.
Chrome Seville, Jackal Riser.
You're throwing a Seville at the banks.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a lot of people's got in their mind that that's an offshore overbrush bait.
No. You go to a boat ramp. What do you see at the boat ramp? Bait. The bait's
Makes
not,
sense.
The bait's not always down there. And the Spro Sashimi Swimmer, a little bit of a downsize from the Seville. Going back to basics, match the hatch.
Okay, makes sense.
But the chrome, with the high sun and everything.
But it sounds like you're throwing faster baits, reaction baits like the Seville, getting them to chase. You're not slowing it down.
Not necessarily. I mean, if I'm not getting hit on that, then I'll follow it up with and I know it sounds, everybody's going to be like, there's no way. Jerk baits are still working shallow.
I think a lot of people dismiss jerk baits a little too quickly. They think it's a cold weather bait. They sell them in the summertime too.
Yeah. I mean,
Fish a jerk bait year round.
Exactly.
You'll catch them.
It's one of those things. With the jerk bait, you can work it fast, you can work it slow. You can slow roll a jerk bait and never jerk it. And
just slow reel it.
Just literally sit there to get it wobbling back and forth. It's slow enough where if they're looking for something and they're there, they're going to hit it.
Okay. Makes sense. So, and before I get to you, Eric, Jason Jones, good seeing you. This week I've been throwing the Evergreen Shower Blow 150 in clear chrome. When they wash on it, chatter donk. What the hell's a chatter donk? Explain to me what a chatter donk is. I imagine it's chatterbait or something like that, and a pearl super fluke. So somebody did mention the super fluke, and Farmer says Seville is great around cover like docks and laydowns as well. So what are you fishing the banks with?
Chatterbaits, jigs, Carolina rig, maybe with a worm, maybe with a lizard, maybe with a fluke.
Holy
Just changing it up a little bit and slowing it down if you need to. But faster stuff, just same things as spinner baits, stuff like that. But if I'm going to slow it down, it's probably going to be Carolina rig or a Texas rig.
That's something I'm trying to learn to throw a little bit more.
A lot of people don't fish Texas rig anymore. The shaky heads come in and took over a Texas rig. When you're at a largemouth lake, I'm not wanting to sit there and shake it because that's what a spot wants you to do, is sit there and shake a worm. I just want to drag it.
And so you go that. Now, do you use, if you're going for, let's say we're going for the big bite on Hickory Log, we're not worried about numbers, and you're going to throw a Texas rig. Are you going to get out the old monsters, the big ones, or you still think it should be smaller in size, 7 inches and below,
Probably 7 inches and above.
And above. So you're going to go bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense, but that's kind of true when you say about the Texas rig. It has fallen out of fashion. And I know guys on largemouth lakes still throwing shaky heads and stuff. I've seen it, and I'm like, the Texas rig has worked forever, especially with a good old curly tail.
Didn't that guy who just won the Elite Series?
Camera on you, beautiful. I like it when I see your face.
I'm pretty sure he won it on ball and chain.
Yeah.
Carolina rig?
He was throwing a Carolina rig with a 10 to 12.5 inch worm.
Over on the ledges. What do they call it? The Dayton Flats or whatever?
Yeah, basically just bringing it off the ledges, letting it fall. It's worked for many years.
Okay.
It's like a spinnerbait.
So Jason Jones is throwing the chatterbait, but I'm on tuna. Okay, well I get that, but I'm going to ask you this, and then Speece, I want you to answer. You've said chatterbait several times. Given the choice between a chatterbait or a spinnerbait, which one are you choosing?
Spinnerbait.
You'll choose a spinnerbait. Okay, so you're still old school like that.
Yeah.
Is there a time in the way you fish where a chatterbait is preferred over a spinnerbait?
Maybe if there's a lot of grass, I want to chatterbait a little more because it seems like with the blade being on the front, it kind of goes through the grass a little bit better than a spinnerbait does for me anyways.
Right.
Like black shoals or varners and the ones that's got, a lot of grass on them.
Yeah, we'll get down there to that point. What about you? What are you grinning about?
No, he was just talking black shoals, and it's like I caught my biggest one on a spinnerbait down there, but I don't throw a chatterbait for squat.
I throw a spinnerbait, I would say 90% of the time.
Rivers all the time, and late winter, early spring, mid-spring, late fall, shallow, spinnerbait's tied on. I will keep a spinnerbait tied on, and Farmer knows, he gives me crap about it all the time. I'll keep a spinnerbait tied on almost all year round.
Spinnerbait has caught fish since it came out. has always caught fish. Michael Fox, when we went at Hickory Log last year with EBO, all our fish came on a chrome Seville. I remember you telling me that after the tournament. Biggest was right before weigh-in across from the boat ramp.
It's right there over in the grass and stuff.
I remember you saying that now because I fished with him last year. I remember him saying it was a Seville bite that day, which, hey, if it works, kind of like what you're saying, if it works, it works. But I think a lot of people go to these smaller reservoirs and they don't think about the Seville as much. Now, Latham is a different story again because it's got spots and bluebacks. But a Seville is an interesting choice because most of the bait fish there are threadfin.
Well,
so maybe it's just
you can drop down to the Spro sashimi, same aspect, smaller bait profile.
Do you like the sashimi better than the Seville?
So last year, Nathan actually turned me onto it because I was having an issue with a lot of short strikes on the Seville, and he's like, "Dude, go to this." And he grabbed me a couple right before the GAKFL championship last year, and literally had a lot more hookups. I mean, the fish weren't huge, but numbers in a boat's numbers in a boat.
Yeah,
so
I like it. How about you? You throw that bait in it at all?
Seville?
No, the sashimi. Now the sashimi's got 4 joints, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's got an extra joint over the Seville.
Yeah, it's got one.
It's got one more than the Seville's got. It's got a wicked action, but the biggest complaint is you can cast the Seville farther than you can the sashimi. That's what I've heard people talking about.
A bait that weighs 5/8 of an ounce compared to a bait that weighs 3/8 of an ounce.
Yeah.
So depending on your setup, I mean, you could probably, if you throw a Seville on a bait caster with mono braid, whatever, and then throw that sashimi on a spinning rod, you're probably going to get close to the same distance.
That's a good point.
It all depends on your setup. I mean, if the rod's set up for it, you got the right line and everything. I mean, you could go cove to cove at Lanier with a Seville, depending on your setup.
I got you.
And it'll cover water, but it just all depends on your setup.
So KK5FE is now. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it. I'm just going to spell it out. I've caught more fish right across from the dock. I assume you're talking about from the boat ramp let me know what lake you're talking about because you said from the dock. So I know that there's not one at Hickory Log. So maybe you mean in the bank. But if it's another lake, definitely let me know which lake you're talking about. If you fish the bank in the summer, just look for shallow water close to deeper water. A lot of fish will sit on the breaks just like in the winter. And that's another thing too. A lot of guys actually use wintertime patterns in the summer. And I noticed it was mentioned up there. I think JP Verne said it about the thermocline setting up and that's something you got to be kind of, if you're out in the open water, definitely got to be kind of, taking that. Jeremiah Giles says, I'll let you in on a secret. There's a version of the Megabass Vision 110 designed for summertime and warmer water. Floats, different hooks, more robust bill, and nobody else is jerkbait fishing. I'll take your word for it. I don't doubt it. I mean, I wonder what makes it a little bit different. I guess because of the hooks being different. Are they smaller or are they bigger? I get the more robust bill and body, but what's different about the hooks on that Megabass like that?
Probably smaller or lighter wire hooks.
You think so?
If it floats and a more robust bill, I would say it's finer wire hooks or smaller hooks.
Okay.
Something to lighten the body up its head.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So we talked a little bit of Hickory Log. Let's get kind of down to some of the other ones that I call the South ones. You got Hard Labor, you got Varner, Black Shoals y'all brought up. They fish a little bit different than Hickory Log and Latham to me.
It's a bowl with water in it.
Bowl with water. There's not much. Now, Hard Labor is a little different in the way it's shaped.
Different. Varner's shaped a little different, but it's still just a different shaped bowl.
Varner is the windiest damn lake I've ever been on.
And they put some kind of aerators in Varner now.
They finally put some aerators in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they needed it. But that lake back when they had grass in the late 80s, early 90s, that was the trophy lake in the state of Georgia as far as a smaller body of water. Y'all had these guys all the time in GON. Of course, we didn't have the internet like we do now, but all the time in GON or on the GON forum, big pictures of big bass, and then they killed the grass. The only 2 times I fished Varner, the wind seemed like it was blowing 30 miles an hour the entire day. There's nothing to block it.
I think you kill grass, you kill the fish.
You think if you kill grass, you kill fish.
Not kill the fish, but the fishing goes down.
Well, there's still some good fish in Varner, but it doesn't fish like it did in its heyday. And Hard Labor over in Social Circle, when it first came out, it took 20-something pounds to win a tournament over there, and that was for several years. I've noticed the weights have taken a big drop on all these lakes. So
pressured.
You think it's pressure? Do you think it's pressure?
So here's the thing. You fish Lanier. How many of us are going out Lanier in the middle of summer?
Well, hell, you can't hardly.
Exactly. So now you're going to where you have no wake boats, no jet skis, no nothing. Now you're hitting electric only because all of us feel that that's our safe spot. So you take the 50 guys that are going to Lanier and you spread them out over 10 lakes. Now you got 5 more guys fishing a lake that hasn't been fished all year.
In addition to the guys that fish it regularly.
Exactly.
I get that. I get that. You mentioned something before. What'd you call it? The new lake? Was it you or it was John Alder. John Alder was up here. When a lake first opens, and because J.P. Verne is asking about Richland Creek in Paulding County, I guess this is a new one. Anybody heard any updates of it opening? It's full, but the gates are still closed. So it's a new lake. When Hard Labor opened, it was like the next great bass mecca. And it got fished pretty hard and all that. The weights are coming down. Now, Latham was a little bit different in that the largemouth were big. Everybody was catching big largemouth, but it had them little spots running all over the place. The spots didn't blow up on Latham until really the bluebacks got in there. But you fished Hard Labor. It's different than the rest of those. What's different about Hard Labor than, say, the Varn or the Black Shoals?
I'd say Hard Labor is a little deeper than those. It's got some deeper spots.
And it's big.
And it is big.
What is it, 1,100, somewhere in there? 1,200 acres? But it's a largemouth lake. There's no spots in that. And I doubt there will be.
I don't think there is in Varner or Black Shoals either.
They're all largemouth. Now, in Black Shoals, you have the hybrids, don't you? You have hybrids, so you have some other kind of predatory fish that the bass guy compete with. I fished Black Shoals once, and it was a daggum mud hole the time out, and it seemed really silty. Varner seemed kind of grassy. It was more that snot grass kind of when I was done it seemed like, or something, but definitely shallower than the Hard Labor. Do you approach Hard Labor similar to those lakes or similar more since it's deeper to the lakes up here?
The same way. Approach it the same way as the others.
As Varner and all those down south. Being a largemouth lake, I assume you're going to stay with the top. Like if you're fishing tomorrow, you're going to hit the banks with topwater, buzzbait, and all that. But a lot of guys get over there. Like the A-rig comes into play over there a lot, which it does on these lakes as well if guys are throwing it. But these are the baits I've heard when it comes to Hard Labor. Buzzbait, A-rig, jig, if you can throw it where there's no grass, and swim jig. Does that sound kind of like the way – would you approach it with any of those? Like, would you throw it – everybody thinks A-rig's a wintertime bait. I see guys throwing it all summer long.
I hate A-rig, personally.
Yeah. I don't throw it as much as I should. You throw an A-rig?
Too many hooks. Too many hooks to mess with when you're in a 16-foot boat and you got 2 A-rigs laying around. All it does is get caught on everything. So I hardly ever worry.
So do you just, instead of throwing an A-rig, do you just kind of go to an underspin or something like that?
Yeah.
Keep it simple with that, just the one hook. You throw A-rigs?
Depends on the place and time of year.
Oh, you think, is it more of a wintertime for you?
No. I don't find it a wintertime bait at all. I find that late fall when they're chasing bait.
Okay. But I know, listen, I know guys, Tim White is still the A-rig master to me, and he will throw that joker anytime if he feels like he can get bit on it. So, Evan Frulini, am I saying your name right? Is it, I guess, Frulini? I know you. I know you are. How do you get, I've never asked you how to pronounce your last name. How do you go about fishing Hard Labor as we get into the heat of summer, which, of course,
it's next month.
Y'all got a tournament over there next month. Does he fish against you? That's why he's asking that question. Okay, but I mean, seriously.
You don't have to worry about me. We're not going to be there.
You're not going to be there at that one.
We're not going to be at that one.
I fished it with Jesse Benson down there one time when he did that kind of that single elimination tournament track, which was fun. I think more clubs should go to that in some time. But we fished crankbaits early and then a jig. And that's kind of what we stuck with. And then when you get to the cow pasture part, it was way too mossy, grass, whatever. And so I was using like a floating Texas rig. But all our fish pretty much were caught on a jig.
Or a Carolina rig.
See, I did not throw a Carolina rig down there.
Or a drop shot.
Well, I would throw a drop shot now knowing how grassy it is. That's a mistake a lot of guys don't. They kind of, I ain't throwing no drop shot, but even up on Latham, any of those lakes that's got that snot grass in it or anything, drop shot's deadly. But we threw a spinnerbait. We threw some spinnerbaits and stuff, and I've seen guys catch fish on that. But we did not go into the upper arm to the right where a lot of guys go. So we stayed cow pasture down. And I know a lot of people like to go up hard labor to the right. What's different about that section up there as far as the topography and the water?
A lot of stumps and stuff like that cover for fish. There's a lot more cover up that way.
Okay.
That you may find a stump that's got one fish on it, and then you find another one on up that's got another fish on it. So it's just a lot more area you can choose from in a shorter distance.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you're struggling with snodgrass, beef up on a drop shot with a short weight to hook leader, 12-pound test, Cinco, 3/0 hook, and a bait caster, Bubba shot. Okay, makes sense. Do you ever have to do that? Do you ever just get in it?
I just want to know when Farmer's actually throwing a drop shot and not a jig.
Well, he knows. He knows how to do that. I don't know. I've never seen him throw a drop shot now that we think about it, but I've only fished with him a couple times.
Fished with him a couple times too.
Yeah.
Never once seen him throw a drop shot.
No, he's cranking and moving and stuff or skipping. That is the skippingest joker I've ever seen. Have you ever seen him skip?
Yeah, I watched him skip and pull a 5-6 pound largemouth under a dock the other night.
The other night. Oh, you got him on the water recently.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
3 weeks. I think he did say that. He
3
came in the
weeks or
shop.
4.
I think he did say that.
Well, yeah, he had me take pictures of him with his little beauty shot to show him the jig that he caught it on.
Wyatt Martin, Yargo. That's a lake that don't get brought up enough. Yargo has been really good lately. Lots of 5 and 6 pounders. I have fished Lake Yargo one time in my life, and it was with I joined when High Voltage Anglers was coming to Latham. We joined. This will take that. Now I will tell you this. This is how Latham has changed. We joined High Voltage because they were coming to Latham, and me and my brother-in-law went out there and we won that tournament with 5 fish for 5.5 pounds. And the only reason we won it was on the way back to the boat ramp, going in the way in, they started schooling right beside us, and we chunked something in there, and we caught our 5th fish, and we ended up winning it. So the very next tournament was Fort Yargo. My gosh, I didn't get a single bite, and they were doing a rowing competition and a triathlon. It was so crowded.
That lake holds some giants.
That's what everybody tells me.
But it's another state park. So it's another state-ran.
It's a
lake,
state-ran
like
lake.
It is.
I know people that have gone there with big swim baits and have pulled 8, 9, and close to DD fish out of there.
I don't doubt it.
So,
but it was that day. It was like that was the worst fishing experience I ever had because there was 5,000 people. I mean, I'm watching like seriously, like we're sitting there fishing, really calm. Gets to about 9 o'clock, and we start hearing a commotion. And next thing you know, here come about 3,000. And I'm not exaggerating, kayaks flying by. And they did something, and then next thing you know, they were swimming across that lake. I was like, I don't know what in the world. Want to catch a lot of numbers, but can catch. Oh, won't catch a lot of numbers, but can catch some trophies.
oh yeah,
Excuse me.
you're not going to go there and catch 40 fish, but you may pull 1 or 2 that are 5+.
Fishing with Farmer Special. Is that what you call it, or is that jig I've been tying here today?
Well, that was the jig that he caught 2 on. And I will give Farmer one thing, and I know it was brought up earlier about the forward-facing sonar. I think that's something that may have hurt some of these small reservoirs as well as far as size. Because now, some of these guys have it tuned into the point they can see, and Farmer was explaining it to me the last time we were out. Some of these guys have it tuned in that they can tell that's a 2-pound bass, that's a 6-pound bass. So now when you have a forward-facing sonar that tuned in and that's all you're targeting, fish keeping, fish health is being affected. So I think that's why, like you were saying with Latham,
yeah.
I think I'm not saying it's 100% why that's affected the sizes, but when you have guys that are targeting this fish and everybody wants that trophy for their wall, I get it. I have no issue with it. But when you have 15, 20 people doing that and you take all the 8 to 10 pounders out of a lake, there go your numbers real quick.
Well, what do you think about it? Because you fish a lot of tournaments, and it has changed the game. But, like, I'm not against forward-facing sonar at all. But on a smaller body, 340, 350, 400 acres. It probably does make it an effect a little bit. Do you think so? Or
Affecting it how?
Well-
because most people that's got forward-facing sonar as a whole, most of them are tournament fishermen.
They're not going to keep.
And
the
most
big
of them
fish.
aren't keeping
Right,
8 or
right.
9 pound bass. They're letting it go.
do you think it's making it harder to catch those fish because they're getting caught more often?
Yes. And
Okay,
they see
so
the
that
same baits more often, and they're getting stuff put right in their face more often.
okay, so it's kind of making them gun shy a little
And that's
bit.
why I like to stay on the shallow side of things, because usually when you get to the shallow side,
You're
the
not
forward
using
face
it.
is not really helping you that much.
Right.
But I feel like that's fish that hadn't been caught as much. And then you see, you know, the guys out there in the middle where their head down the whole time. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I definitely wasn't talking about the population, but that's
Right.
what I was talking about. Like those fish, that bass, because there is studies that show that some bass live their entire life 15 foot or shallower, and some are in that middle range, and some stay deep year round unless they come up to spawn. Those fish that were down deep that never got any pressure at all now are kind of pressured, getting a little bit harder to catch them. So maybe that's how on a smaller body, forward facing sonar, not to a detriment, just making you got to work
Right.
that much harder. That's a good point.
And I mean, how many, like, say before forward facing sonar, how many yellow perch did you see get pulled out of Lanier?
Not very many.
Now, now it seems like everybody's catching them all the time.
Yeah.
And it's because they're down there at 60, 70 foot deep with a Demiki rig right over top of fish, and they're pulling out these yellow perch that nobody else hardly, some people probably didn't know they were in there.
Yeah, I saw some big yellow perch come out of Lanier this winter.
Yeah, I was
Kevin-
going to say there was a
Kevin
lot of
caught-
like
Kevin Underwood caught some
two-
big ones.
2 and 3 pounders getting pulled out of there. I mean, that's
He let go or they ate the late. He didn't know what the late record was,
was
and he
good.
said he had one that was the late record for Lanier. And of course, Kevin sends me these pictures when he's catching them, and it's the before on the hook, and then he always sends me the after in cornbread. So it's like, hey, listen, that's some good stuff. Evan wants to know, do y'all ever do any deep cranking in the summer on these things? I will tell you this, I never have, but I was asking some people, and Kevin Underwood being one of them, and the first thing come out of his mouth was, "You don't throw any deep crankbaits?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not a crankbait. To me, is rock crawler on the rocks, shallow, 15 foot or less." He's like, "Nah, bro, you gotta get down there with them."
if you can get to that 20, 40 foot, you're going to smack them on cranks.
Really?
Hickory Log too.
Yep.
You know those big steep banks at Hickory Log?
Yes, I do.
Pull a crankbait 20 foot and you'll catch fish.
So, okay, give me a recommendation on a crankbait that rolls. You ain't gotta give me the color, but give me a
Just
recommendation
the
on a
DT
crankbait.
20 or the
You
Yeah,
throw
DT16
you throw with the DT 20s
Mhm,
and all
yeah.
that. And you said that, I heard you say, yeah, that's you talking same
20,
thing.
2060s, yeah.
Okay,
And
hey,
then
listen.
you want it to hit the bottom. You don't want it to stay above the bottom. You want it ticking off the bottom.
So when you get that deep, though, you gotta bomb a cast to get it down there. So you gotta be good at casting it, get it down there. I know that little ledge. That's the most fishy looking spot on Hickory Log to me, is that rock wall right there as you go around that little turn where that big point comes out.
And I caught one with a DT 20 there 2 weeks ago.
Well, there you go. It would be a
But
run on
just
DT
one,
20s.
but I did catch one.
Well, see, that's what those guys were telling me. Is like everybody's going to go beat the banks because my tournament's in a couple of weeks. Everybody's going to beat the banks and catch their 5 fish. You need that kicker. And he said, have your partner beat the banks and you throw deep all day long. He goes, you might only get 1 or 2 bites, but they ought to be a good one if you do.
Well,
So-
yeah, if you're getting that deep, those are fish that ain't getting targeted.
Gary Bell, Eric dumping juice right there. Well, you ain't got to go back to that lake this year, do you? Yeah, so there you go. He's helping out. He's helping the rest of us out there, Kerry. And we need it. Ain't nothing better than banging a deep crankbait off a brush pile, and that rod will just go slack. They hit it so hard.
Leads fishing Chickamauga, cranking.
Yeah, so there you go. Wyatt Martin says we need to get Patrick Siddell on here. He fishes Yargo every day. He could run a guiding company on that lake. Well, hey, set it up. I'll talk to everybody. That's what, look at what I got right here, especially to my right.
I was
right
going
here.
to say, I was waiting for that right finger to go.
I was digging deep for this one.
No, I'm not digging deep. Listen, you guys fish a lot. That's the big thing is the whole, even our Thursday nights, and I know we get some pros on and all that, but the goal of the show is to help somebody that's watching go out and catch a fish. That's all I really care about. So long lining is an old school way of getting a crankbait extremely deep. You ever long lined? Where you just let you reel out and you just drive?
Well, I mean, I have, but not in a tournament because
It's
some
illegal.
people can say
Yeah.
that's trolling,
Yeah.
and
That's true.
So-
That's true.
that kind of stuff you kind of do for fun, I guess.
That's right. DD, that's a good way to get under docks too. I know some guys that do that. DD22 is awesome on a summer evening over humps and rocks. And now, so down at Hard Labor, because it's a little bit deeper. Good crankbait.
Yeah, you could do it there. Varner too.
Really?
With the bridge that's at Varner with the rocks on the side, and that's a little deeper where that bridge is at. That's a good spot for a crankbait too.
So, do you need rocks or a harder surface to throw your crankbaits? So you would still throw it over that,
but
you
it's
don't.
better.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah,
yeah. Because we were
you're
talking
not
about digging the bottom.
You're not going to throw a crankbait and all
Sure,
mud and grass.
for sure.
Right.
But a lot of people, if you're trying to get 25, 40 foot down or whatever y'all guys are trying to get down there, surely the grass is not as prominent down there as it is.
No, I wouldn't think so.
I know a lot of guys on Latham. Here's your little juice. They're throwing jigs. They don't throw it at the bank. They throw it to where their jig lands in 15 to 20 foot of water. So when it hits the bottom, just do it. You'll thank me later on that. That's something. Listen. I don't make my money fishing tournaments. But that's something I know a lot of
I
guys.
don't make any money fishing tournaments.
Yeah, listen. There's some guys. Lord knows. Now it's more on the big lakes. You ever beat them at a tournament? Lord, good Lord, you thought you take their mortgage payment.
$500 payout on big fish was definitely worth it.
Big fish was definitely worth it. Any of y'all fished Charlie Elliott? I have not.
Never heard of
We
it.
have no info on Charlie Elliott. I want to know. Okay, so Hard Labor, largemouth lake, big lake, really anything you could do down there will work. But I noticed the EBO had a tournament down there a couple weeks ago that I didn't get to go to. A lot of people got skunked on it. A lot of people had smaller bags, and it really wasn't a huge bag. Do you think, because we were talking forward facing sonar, could that have an effect on that lake as well? Or do you think it's kind of wearing off?
I know the problem with Hard Labor.
What's the problem with Hard Labor?
Over pressured and fish care. And I can say that without a shadow of a doubt. Last year we were down there with GAKFL, two John boat tournaments going on in the kayak tournament. Came back from the kayak tournament, John boat guys weighed in. When we were pulling into the boat ramp, there was 6 or 7 largemouth, all 5+ floating.
You think it could be an isolated issue that you just stumbled across, or you think that's something that happens on all of these lakes?
I think it's something that happens on all the lakes.
Was it summertime?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fish care is the biggest thing. I mean, that's why, Scott Barnes don't run his tournaments only near over the summer.
Right.
That's why I know a lot of guys, and most of the John boat guys know what they're doing. They know how to take care of their fish. But you get Joe Blow from down the street, goes on Facebook, buys himself a 14-foot Alumacraft, tries to build it out, has a live well, don't know how to take care of the fish. You're losing fish.
Oh,
and
wow.
when you got these big John boat tournaments, like I'm sure you know what you're doing, and you got a good live well set up. But half these guys, they don't realize with these John boats, you got to have 20K or more invested into it. That's
Some of these guys do, definitely.
well,
yeah.
and that's why I'm saying I'm sure he has a John boat that's set up for it. But a lot of these guys, they sit there and see money, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to go buy this $1,500 John boat on Facebook. I'm going to put, $3,000 motor on it. I'm going to put, Yeti coolers in it and keep my fish alive." It's not the way it works.
Well, I will say this. That is one thing that you kayaker guys do have an advantage on, the way release right there.
To an extent, but again, it goes back to we still have to measure our fish.
Yeah.
You need to get that done in a timely manner. If you're sitting there worried about getting your pick, sitting there weighing the fit or measuring the fish, making sure your board is watered.
Yeah.
If you put a fish on there, your board's sitting out in the sun, that board's 100 to 120 degrees. Put a fish on there right out in the water, you're going to lose slime coat. You're going to kill that fish in a nutshell. So it goes the same way on both sides. The boater guys have to worry about their live well. Kayak guys in tournaments need to make sure their boards are watered and make sure that fish is getting back in the water as quick as possible.
You know what? I want to say I appreciate you saying that, because I've had plenty of kayak guys on here. You're the first one that ever said, not the fish, when we're talking specifically fish care. I've always heard water the boards for slime coat and all that, but as far as temperature in the summertime, I guess that thing does get really hot.
It's plastic, and some of them are metal.
Yeah.
So,
but you don't hear kayak guys talking about fish mortality a lot. It doesn't come up in the kayak world a lot. I appreciate you saying it. It happens.
I think it's just the aspect as fishermen, as all of us are fishermen here.
Yeah.
We care about our lakes. We care about the water. We care about chasing trophies. We
Yeah.
want to catch our PB. That's what we want to do. But when you get down to it, when you have these lakes, these small water reservoirs that are electric only, and we're hearing about numbers dropping, there's things you need to look at. And you can blame forward facing sonar all you want. It's not going to guarantee the fish is going to eat your bait.
That's
it going
right.
to help you? Yes. I'm in the middle of the ground because I'm going to get it from my kayak eventually, but it's more to clear water. If you ain't taking care of fish in the summer, don't even go out and fish.
I agree with you. Yeah.
That 10-pound largemouth that you catch, that you got to get your picture taken and whatnot, that 5 minutes out of water, 5 minutes you could have killed that fish.
Makes
and
sense.
nobody else is going to catch it.
What speaking of which, fish care, what do you do on your boat to, what are the steps that you take, or the process as far as you?
So basically, I put that morning before I leave the house, I put a bag of ice in my live well.
Yep.
And plug it up so no water can get in it. It's just like a cooler of beer, Cokes, whatever. If you put ice in it before you put the drinks, it's going to stay cold.
That's right.
So I do that. I don't fill it up with water until I catch the first fish. I have G juice in it, and I also have oxygen. I've got oxygen.
Oh, you
tank
do
on my
use
boat.
oxygen?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and it
vital.
has been a game changer with the oxygen, because those fish seem like they want to jump out of live well more by the time the tournament's over than they do when I put them in it.
Pure oxygen's the way to go.
Yeah, pure oxygen.
Well,
But you also have to know how to adjust it, because if you're putting too much oxygen in, it can hurt fish.
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Especially bait fish. Like if you put bait fish with oxygen in it, you put too much, they'll turn red, like a reddish color. And
Yeah.
you're getting too much oxygen in.
Too much circulation.
Okay, so Philip Hutchinson says catching fish is only half the equation. Fish care and handling is hyper important to take care of fishery, regardless of species. And that's, he was on just a couple weeks. We're talking about trout,
He's a trout guy.
but they have to be.
Well, yeah, because, and not saying bass ain't finicky, but I know Phil's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. You're seeing these guys that don't know jack about trout fishing. And Blake, you would understand, because I know you got into it. Brown trout, rainbow trout, those big ones, they're not meant to be handled for more than a couple seconds. You want to sit there and measure it, make sure that, whatever you're using, make sure it's wet, make sure it's cold. Because you put a trout on that thing, as soon as you put it in that water, that thing's floating.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is there's people on the hooch right now that, have been given lessons, per se, to catch trophy browns, and now we're losing them. So
Because they're not taking care of them.
they're basically, they want their 15 seconds of fame for 10 minutes of pictures. So
I got you.
Phil, I completely understand with him on that, and he knows what I'm talking
I
about.
know exactly what you're talking about
it's
with
a
too. I
show.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then another big part, me and Nick actually did this in a tournament. It was the one at Latham's that we won. We actually let a fish go before we had our limit, because it choked a worm or a jig. I can't remember which one. And it was so deep, we got it out, but it was bleeding. We let that fish go right then. We didn't even put it in the live well.
Yeah.
And it was a keeper fish, and we didn't have 5. But we knew he had a better chance of living if we let him go right then than putting him in the live well all day.
He may die regardless, but you knew he would die.
He might.
But
he
you
would
knew
have
100%
for sure
died.
if we put him in the live well.
Yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
more people need to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree
and,
with him
And
on
I
that.
get, chasing that paycheck. But there's a point to 5 people at tournament do that. That's 5 less fish. You add that up.
No, I
15,
get
20
it.
times a year. That's
Yeah.
100 fish gone.
Yeah. So Tony Collin, the how-to hero, man, I always appreciate seeing your name on here. Texas Park and Wildlife has a great article on DIY oxygen system and how to use it. So you guys check that out. Jason Jones says oxygen poisoning is a very real thing for people and for fish. I'll be honest, never thought about it with fish. I don't have an oxygen system, so it really hasn't crossed my mind a lot, but
It's simple to do. I feel like everybody who's fishing tournaments should do it.
I did not even think about that.
I mean,
Taylor,
you can go 3 tournaments on an oxygen tank.
on an oxygen tank, because
And
you
it
don't really have to put a lot in it.
And
Just,
it costs what, 20, 25 bucks?
Costs $9 at Hammond's to fill it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
The
So-
most money you're spending if you get
it's
out,
when
like,
you buy it, because it's $150 for the whole setup.
Yeah.
But
depending on
that's
the
all you need.
airstone.
yeah, okay, but that's still. But I mean, I'm just complete ignorance there. I was totally ignorant of that too much oxygen would kill a fish.
Mm-hmm. Like I used to have a
If
dial.
I
You
stick
just
an
crack it.
oxygen hose in your nose and put it over.
Yeah, but I'm
100%.
not. But here's why. Here's why. Because I'm not thinking about it dispersing into the water as much as I am it bubbling to the top and just kind of going out. I mean, that's just being honest. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm being as honest as I can. I am not by no means an expert, so I really didn't think about, damn, you can put too much oxygen in water. And I'm sure people out there are like idiot, but I'll
And
be
then the
honest.
other things, a lot of people think bigger bubbles is more oxygen.
It's
When it's actually the opposite.
Smaller bubbles,
more oxygen.
it disperses into the water easier.
Yep.
I learned something tonight. And that's the great thing about this show is I'm learning as you guys are learning. Phil, you mean the guys dropping 31-inch browns in their boat and keeping it out of the water for over a minute?
not saying nothing. I mean, we could go deeper into that and discuss.
We
the whole-
could. I know we'd be here for 4 or 5 hours.
So
on
after
that.
show's over, we'll talk
Yeah,
to
we'll
you about
talk-
the
oh, yeah.
state record brown and
Yeah.
the guy that caught that.
Yep.
You'll love to
Colin
know.
Steele, what's up, buddy? Salt is a great additive to your live well as well for fish care. It can be rough on your equipment, so you need to wash it out, but good for the slime coat and reducing delayed mortality. And he knows because he's in the biology business when it comes to fish and pond management and stuff like that. So definitely. Jason Jones, get an old green tank from Harbor Freight, load it, and get a reg. Yeah, heat and air guys, I always had oxygen because I was welding back in the day doing heat and air, so I didn't even think about that. Hot Rod Dave wants to know, could you use a fish tank air stone and an air pump?
If it's a big enough one, yeah. I mean, you're not going to stick your 5-gallon air stone, 5-gallon aquarium air stone in a 50-gallon bait tank.
But let's say live well, for a live well.
I
How
mean,
many gallons does a live well normally hold?
22, 25
22,
gallons.
25
you're looking at me. I don't have.
Yeah,
a
you're the
live
kayak
well.
guy. Why the hell am I looking
22,
at my live
25
well?
gallons.
Let me turn this way.
I'd say 22, 25 gallons on mine's a bass tracker, so 20 to 25 gallons.
So you could, as long as that stone stay. Well, it doesn't even have to stay, but as long as you can get enough air through it, I guess it would work. I mean, really, if you go buy a bubbler, one of them cheap ass bubblers that runs on 2Ds, it's got a little stone. I mean, that's basically what it's doing. And now in the summertime,
You're going to want something. I don't want to say beefier, but something that's going to. Those bubblers work. Those bubblers that you get for like the bait tanks,
Woo-hoo.
they're more set for a 5-gallon bucket. That's where you see them because they have that like belt clip to go on the bucket for your guys that are bank fishing and guys that are in kayaks and bait fishing. But something like that, you're going to want a bigger stone that's putting out a little bit more to it.
Okay. And Carrie Bell says a 12-volt power bubble system has been great for me so far this year. Ran 2 5-inch fish tank discs attached to the bottom of my live well. So I guess it's just a matter of as long as you get the proper amount of oxygen into the water, that works. And that's one thing though about electric only, especially when guys are getting started. And you mentioned getting in the John boat. A lot of them do get coolers and think, okay, because it's cool. And they don't always go buy the Yeti or whatever. First of all, I don't know if a Yeti is big enough unless you get the really expensive ones. But a lot of guys will get old Coleman cooler, and that will work in the winter, early spring, late fall. That really, you can keep a fish alive, but that's still not the best environment.
100
'Cause
degree,
it will heat
100
up.
degree
It's gonna heat
temperature
up.
in a tin oven. What do you expect to happen?
Yeah. Oh, I'm telling you what, a Lumacraft John boat gets hot, boys, in the summertime.
And I'll also put pool noodles in my live well on the inside.
Yep.
For 2 things. One, the fish jumping out. But 2, it gives it a little bit of cushion, almost like insulation, a little bit of shade. When you open that lid, that water's going to heat up for the time it takes you to pull a fish out, put a fish in, weigh this fish. But with the noodles there, it kind of keeps a little bit of that off and makes them feel a lot more comfortable that they're under something, like if they're on a log, under a log.
Undercover.
Keeps their anxiety
keeps
down.
them from going crazy as much.
I know a lot of guys in the big bass boats will use those because of the bumpiness of the ride too, coming like a cushion, a little bit of top, but that does make sense. A little bit of a shade in there and definitely the fish jumping out.
And I never add water. Once I fill my live well up, I never add water again.
And guys need to
Especially in the summertime. Wintertime, I will.
Yeah.
Summertime, I never add water to it.
Yeah.
Because if you do, all you're doing is you tried your best to cool that water down.
That's what I was getting ready to
Hot
say.
water
You're
back
pumping
into
80
it
degree
'cause
water in it.
it's 100 degrees outside. I was just on Lanier Sunday, 86 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Fish ain't staying alive in that.
No.
So Farmer says you can also have carbon dioxide issues if you open your live wells and see large dirty bubbles. Your water is oxygen deficient, which went back to you saying a lot of people think big bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's good. And venting your live wells will help with the carbon dioxide. And that, I think, especially on them big boats, I know a lot of guys have gone to the vented kind of thing. I haven't seen anybody in the electric world do that. But here, ice slows the bait down. I get, Thurman, because he's using them to keep your bait alive. Jason Jones says, and this is another thing, plus the noodles have an added R value. So in heating and air, that is, in insulation, the higher the R value, the more insulation you got. So they do. I mean, the pool noodle, if you think about it, it's got a lot of uses.
It does.
Nobody thinks about that. So
You can catch fish with one. You can keep them alive with them.
yeah, the catfish guys, it makes a hell of a noodle float.
Everybody makes fun of me for having like a pool noodle style thing on my fishing rods, because with a kayak, you're fishing a river, flip your shit real quick, you're gonna lose your rods. Those pool noodles.
You put a pool noodle on the ones you're not using.
They're on all my rods.
How do you do that? You rigging them on the butts or something?
No, they're actually where the handle is, right above it, but they're not as thick as a pool noodle. So it's the pool noodle material, just not.
But it makes it float.
Yes.
You know how you could you know how you could fix that? If you would buy an Evolve rod sleeve that we sell here at Fish North Georgia, they are guaranteed to float with your rod in it. Not only do that, they have the protective tip and the lanyard to hook on your thing for you guys that go high speed, and your hooks don't get hooked in it. But I get what you're saying. That's actually pretty neat, though.
Great plug. But what are you doing with those rods when you're switching between two?
What do you mean switching between two?
If
Or
you
you're
got
fishing with one.
Yeah.
He said he'll stay on it all the time.
Yeah,
Even
no,
when
he
he's
does.
fishing.
He does. Because I'll be honest with you, the second I get on my boat, every day I'm one of them come off. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Every one of them come off. But that is pretty cool. Taylor Temples, Keith Chambly told me he has a temp gauge and a cooler with ice. He's trying to keep the water temp 10 to 12 degrees under the lake temp. So, yeah, I mean, it's like that. And a lot of people, like you said, you don't add water. Hell, that water could be 85 degrees, especially if guys are in a shallow spot catching it. That's why you put it in early with the ice and then keep it in there, because it helps to regulate it. But a lot of guys don't think about that, and they catch their first fish, and they're in, maybe it's 11 o'clock before they catch it. That water is heated up, and you're throwing that fish. And they're like, well, that's what the fish was in. Yeah, but I don't think that,
You think that stuns the fish?
do I think it stuns them?
Yeah, say you catch one 12 o'clock, water's super hot, and you throw it in a cold-ass live well. Think it does anything?
I think it's got to be matched on the water temp. I mean, if you're going to sit there and catch a fish in 85-degree temperature and have your water at 65, yeah. But if you're talking 5 to 15 degrees, I don't think it's enough to shock them to the point of mortality.
Well, they're cold-blooded creatures anyway, so I don't know how it does it, but it definitely shouldn't hurt them. Frank Arnold says, while fishing, prop your live well lids open by turning the latch to the lock position. Oh, turning and then sitting it down. I guess he's saying just to let it vent, kind of a different way of venting them.
You got a
Well,
partner
then if
fishing.
you're doing that, you're letting hot air in too in the summertime.
Yeah, the vent systems that are made for the live wells are actually built in to not allow heat in. It's sort of like
A one-way kind of thing.
in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
makes
allowing
sense.
air.
Well, my level has little creases on the backside under it that go into the bottom of my boat that in turn vents out. So
Okay,
that's
all right.
it.
Philip says you can buy aquarium coolers and a Bluetooth temp probe and set up a cool live well pretty easy. But the problem with that, Philip, is guys taking the time to do it. I mean, you can have oxygen on your boat. You got to take time to do it.
Yeah, I take that.
And
15
I-
minutes to set up.
And heat rises, Jason Jones, of course. I really think the pool noodle idea is pretty cool.
What, live well or
No. As a rock, kind of as a flotation rod in a river. So, if you're in a river or something like that, and you flip your kayak. Well, I guess it would matter if you're in a lake and all that, but especially when you get in a river.
You get a bunch of screwballs.
Of course, then you got to chase that son of a bitch down and catch it. But still, I mean, that makes sense. I ain't never heard nobody say nothing. People make fun of you for that.
Yeah, whenever I'm on TikTok, why you have pool noodles on your rod? It's like, if you want to send me $200 for a new rod and reel,
Speaking of which, while the camera's on, and put the camera back on, go ahead and shout out because you're big on TikTok. Go ahead and shout out all your socials.
big on TikTok.
Huh?
You got more followers than I do.
I'm just bigger on TikTok, but you're big on TikTok. You're big on
No,
TikTok, and you fish live on it a lot.
Yeah.
So people can watch you fish live.
It's a teaching aspect. People always come in and have questions, either what I'm fishing, how I'm fishing, the kayak, the whole 9 yards. So,
there you go. 770 Fishing.
770 Fishing on TikTok, Instagram. Can go on, give a follow. I usually go live on weekends because of work schedules, but we have fun with it. We have got questions you can always ask. I'm not one of the typical TikTok guys that are, just blowing everybody off.
Right. But yeah, you guys, it's very interesting. When I go through and he's on, I don't always comment, but I watch you fish. Sometimes
It's fun to watch.
it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's interesting.
I
mean,
keep it interesting because I sure in the hell don't catch
You do a
fish.
good job, but you guys should definitely go follow them. You don't do no social, do you? You like to lay low.
Yeah.
You like to lay low.
Now my son's fixing to start one.
That's
for
what
high
I.
school
That's
stuff.
exactly what I was getting ready to say. So, what's your son going to be fishing coming up? He fishes the high school for what high school?
With Creekview.
Creekview. So he fishes that, but he's going to be doing a couple other things coming
He's
up.
going to be fishing the Bass Nation and MLF for the high schools next year.
Yeah.
And Cooper Bolin, the one you were talking about, that's his fishing partner.
Oh, is that Cooper?
Yeah.
All right, Cooper. Well, there you go. I don't know if he's still on here. All right, guys. So we're about an hour and 50 in, and we covered a lot. Georgia's got a lot of great smaller lakes. A lot of them fish just like a big lake. You can do the same stuff here and there, but I think the most important thing that we kind of touched on tonight really was what we just talked about right here at the end when it comes to summertime fishing is the fish care. And if you're going to go out and you're in a tournament situation, whether it be measuring or whether it be that, is taking care of those fish.
Yeah, because eventually, I mean, I know Latham did that shutdown where they weren't allowing tournaments or anything for a while to help grow the fish, which I think that first year helped. Because I've seen some bigger lips come out of there. I've seen some spots that were, I don't want to say trophy size, but quality spots. Now all of a sudden, 3 years later,
well,
going back to smaller size fish again.
It hasn't gotten back. Definitely didn't get back to pre-COVID weights. They were
I think that has a lot to do with it too,
because of all the pressure from COVID.
You had nothing else to do.
Man, it was absolutely full during COVID, and normally it's full on Saturdays. 3 out of the 4 Sundays is full. It was full Monday through. It was crazy. So
but it's a good thing because it did help the sport. Because I'm not going to be negative Nancy, but I think the sport of fishing was, I don't want to say on a downfall, but I think it took a hit pre-COVID because I think a lot of people were getting away from it. But COVID, I want to say to a point, helped because it got especially the younger generation because these kids weren't allowed in school. They had to sit at home. I think it helped the younger generation, but especially with like what you were saying your son's doing, I think helping to save the sport with the younger generation, I think is the biggest thing. Because if we don't teach them now, and I know you guys always talk about high school anglers with boat captains respect and teaching them correctly, I think that's the biggest thing. Because if not, 20 years from now, what's fishing going to be like?
I will say this. It did help in that aspect. Here's where it hurt. A lot of your mom and pop companies during COVID got bought up by bigger companies. And these bigger, so industry wise, as far as sales and tackle and everything, we had a COVID spike. And then all these companies came in and bought these, they saw it, they came in and bought it. And then we had a decline. We got back to COVID levels. And then after COVID with all the shortages, we got back down as far as industry dollars to pre-COVID levels. That's just now starting to tick back up. So I agree with you on the getting people involved. But as an industry, as far as the manufacture and sales of that, COVID put a wicked hurting on the fishing industry.
To a point, because you noticed post-COVID, everybody and their mother were selling their boats off that they couldn't afford.
True.
That they bought with all their STEMI checks.
Yeah, it was interesting. And here's another thing, and I've said it on this show quite a few times. More tackle sales in the fishing industry, more tackle sales occur when unemployment is high. When the economy is good and everybody's got a job and unemployment's low, the tackle industry suffers.
You know why?
Okay, because they
got to work.
Yeah, they got to work. That's 100%. But it is interesting. It is interesting. I didn't think about that till I started selling tackle, and then you go to iCash and you get all these behind the scene reports and all that. So, all right, guys. So we're gonna end it with that. Jason Jones says vote appropriately, and absolutely you need to do that. So, Eric, appreciate you guys coming up and looking forward, to what you do. But I'm looking more forward to seeing what your boy does like that and being able to keep up with that. So I appreciate you coming up here on Tuesday night and spending time with us and Speece. Exactly the same thing. You're always both of you guys are in the comment sections. And so even when you're not here, I appreciate what y'all do helping us with the show and all that. You guys go give Speece a follow on his social, 770 Fishing. I said it right.
770 _fishing.
770 _fishing on all his social media. And Blake, you did a fine job tonight. Appreciate you not choking to death back there. I tried to keep it serious for you. So, Frank Arnold, good night from NC State. Hey, appreciate all the compliments. We'll be back Thursday with another big lake bass episode. Don't know exactly what we're going to do just yet. I'll probably be announcing it tomorrow or late tomorrow. So, if you don't watch that, you go get on the water this week or during the weekend. It's going to be hot for the next few weeks. So make sure you take precaution with your fish care, but take precaution with yourself too as well. Make sure you hydrate and do all that stuff. And I will tell you, Miller Lights is not hydration.
Yeah.
They're great when they're cold, but not hydration. So you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll see you Thursday or down the road.